Chapter 171. As a chef, Bufong's taste buds had long been trained by his own culinary skills. Once an unpalatable dish entered his mouth, it would be tasteless to him. It would cause his face to darken and affect his taste buds' judgment. Spitting out the fish soup was merely a subconscious action of his. The corner of Bufong's mouth twitched. This serpent woman girl was no different from a human girl. She would still cry at the slightest disagreement. However, it was his fault for making her cry. Bufong's voice was not loud, but it instantly silenced the entire place. Wu Yunbai felt her view of the world had been refreshed once again. This young man in front of her was a chef? King chef? Overall, your fish soup is not bad. Every step is done very well, but it can only be considered average. Moreover, you don't have a clear understanding of the nature of the fish. Some fish are suitable for making soup, but some fish are not, because the taste of different fish is different when it's cooked. This kind of improvement in one's sense of taste was a great help in improving a chef's culinary skills. It could allow a chef to judge and handle the taste of ingredients more accurately. Bufong solemnly walked in front of elder sister Mu. He could not help but activate his venomous tongue mode. He could not help but start commenting on dishes. The little girl immediately stopped crying. Her hands tugged at each other. Her lips were pursed, and her eyes were red. She was slightly sobbing as she looked at her mother. This human bro is right. Mother's culinary skills have always had a lot of room for improvement. After listening to his comments today, Mother has learned a lot. Why are you crying? We should be thanking this bro instead. Elder Sister Mu did not know whether to laugh or cry as she scratched the little girl's nose and said softly, "How can you say that, human? My mother's fish soup is the best in the entire serpent people tribe. What do you know? Moreover, do you even know how to cook?" A serpent woman girl glared at Bufong. She slightly swayed her dainty serpent tail and snorted. Wu Yunbai's eyes widened in disbelief. This guy can't be for real, right? If the soup was not delicious, she would be slapped in the face. Elder sister Mu quickly cleaned up the stove, then looked at Bufong. This kind of fish was not suitable for soup, but it was suitable for another very delicious cooking method. Bufong nodded and walked slowly to the beautiful serpent woman with the steaming hot soup in his hands. Bufong's blank expression made the people around him speechless. Elder Sister Mu was so angry that she laughed. The surrounding people also nodded. Big Sister Mu's culinary skills might not be the best in the entire Naga tribe, but at least in the tribe, no one could compare to her. Although fish soup was not her best dish, everyone would never get tired of it. Wasn't a chef supposed to be in the kitchen preparing dishes? The one called Elder Sister Mu, the mother of the little serpent person, was a beautiful and gentle serpent person. She held a cooking ladle and looked at Bufong with dissatisfaction. Bufong was not in a hurry to make a move. He first pinched the fat fish that the serpent man had prepared for him. This was a rank one-spirit beast fish, and it was extremely plump. "Oh, sir, are you also a chef who loves delicacies? Nice to meet you. It seems like you are not satisfied with the delicacies I have cooked." Elder Sister Mu was startled for a moment. Then her expression became serious. Bufong's words once again caused the surrounding people to exclaim. This human was really a chef? He actually wanted to cook personally? To put it simply, because he frequently cooked spirit energy delicacies, his sense of taste had become more sensitive. His senses were magnified infinitely, and he was able to capture even the slightest taste. This also made him more picky when it came to dishes. After tasting the fish, Bufong had an idea about the best way to cook it. The Serpent People tribe was located in the illusory spirit swamp, and they often ate this fat fish. Thus, they were extremely familiar with the cooking method, and it could be considered as their local dish. Elder Sister Mu looked at Bufong in astonishment. When she saw Bufong's confident expression, she slightly narrowed her eyes, straightened her body, and said to Bufong, "It is my honor. This is the stove. I will clean it up for you to use." Wu Yunbai, on the other hand, slightly curled up the corners of her mouth as she looked at Bufong with interest. This young man, was he really not here to joke around? After all, this was the Serpent People tribe. Even if their fish soup was really bad, there was no need for him to say it out loud. Moreover, the taste of the fish soup was not bad. After Bu Fong finished speaking, he resumed his expressionless face. He was not a talkative person to begin with, but when it came to evaluating dishes, his venomous tongue would turn into a venomous one. Bu Fong was stunned for a moment. He did not expect his words to cause the surrounding people to glare at him. He was merely stating a fact. In his opinion, the taste of the fish soup was indeed terrible. And that was the grilled fish. Elder Sister Mu's eyes became brighter and brighter as she listened to Bu Fong's evaluation. That was because she realized that everything Bu Fong said was actually true. If Bu Fong was a chef, then it would be understandable for him to be a little picky about food. A chef's sense of taste was much more sensitive than that of an average person. They were even more picky about the taste of food. It might be easy for a dish to conquer an average person, but it would be much more difficult to conquer a chef. Bu Fong's scrunched-up expression was as if he had eaten a bitter Chinese gold thread. It was simply incomprehensible. Bu Fong did not have the intention to humiliate others. It was really just a subconscious action. The taste of this fat fish that was made into dried fish and then steamed was much more delicious than the fish soup. As for the spring sungrass, she did not really understand it. Even though humans and serpent people were related, no one could guarantee that their tastes were the same. Bu Fong came back to his senses. When he heard the words of the little serpent person, the corners of his mouth instantly curled up. He indifferently glanced at the little serpent person girl and said, "Of course I know how to cook. I'm also a chef." Bu Fong jabbered on, causing everyone present to feel a little muddle-headed. After all, none of them were chefs. Their knowledge of food had not reached a profound level. What spring sungrass, what control of heat, what characteristics of fish, and so on. How could they understand? You said so much. If you are capable, then cook a dish that is more delicious than Mother's fish soup. What kind of capability is it to criticize Mother's dish? You are a bad person. The little serpent person girl felt wronged. When Bu Fong was commenting on the dish, he did not hold back at all. When the little girl heard her mother's dish being belittled in such a way, tears welled up in her eyes. Therefore, everyone's gaze fell on Bu Fong. Many of the serpent people were glaring at him. The head elder and the others were also frowning. The freshness and sweetness of the fish were perfectly reflected in the fish soup. The serpent people chef who brewed the fish soup had decent culinary skills. Perhaps it was not as exquisite as humans, but the taste was still passable in the eyes of Wu Yunbai and the others. But since you were a chef, why did you come to the serpent people tribe in the illusory spirit swamp? I always thought you were an adventurer. She was not a person who was easily angered. Perhaps her food really could not enter Bu Fong's mouth. Everyone had their own taste, so it was not Bu Fong's fault. Elder Sister Mu was quite clear about this. It's not that this fish can't be cooked in a soup, but you're missing a lot of important seasonings. If you add some spring sun grass into the soup, not only will it remove the fishy smell of the fish, it will also enhance the freshness of the meat. But what I want to say is, using this fish to cook soup is really a waste. Even if it is dried and steamed, the taste will still be better than cooking fish soup. When Elder Sister Mu saw that the little girl was about to burst into tears, she hurriedly twisted her waist to comfort her. Bu Fong pondered for a moment, then opened his mouth and said, "How about this? It's still early, so I will cook a fish dish for everyone to try. I hope everyone will like it. Consider it a form of compensation for my presumptuous comments on the dish." Chapter 172. Under everyone's gazes, Bu Fong reached out his hand and abruptly grabbed the plump fish out of the basin. His 2 fingers skillfully grasped the sides of the fish and easily grabbed it. The plump fish struggled in Bu Fong's hand, but it was as if it was caught by a pair of steel pincers, unable to break free at all. Bu Fong's expression was calm as he sized up the plump fish. To be honest, this fish was really plump, and its entire body was filled with meat. Bu Fong's eyes slightly lit up as he looked at it. He was even more satisfied with this ingredient. It was not easy for a chef to find ingredients that could satisfy him. Bu Fong did not choose to use the dragon bone kitchen knife. Instead, he directly picked up a kitchen knife that elder sister Mu had placed on the stove and casually twirled it. The kitchen knife immediately spun around in Bu Fang's hand. This cool technique instantly caused many people to exclaim in surprise. Twirling a kitchen knife could be considered a habit of Bu Fang. An ordinary person would not be able to do it. Since Bu Fang had practiced the meteor cutting technique for a long time, he would subconsciously twirl the knife. He really did not do it to look cool. Bu Fang's expression was calm as the kitchen knife directly cut through the belly of the plump fish. Under the sharp kitchen knife, the white and tender belly was like a piece of paper as it was directly cut open by Bu Fang. Then, Bu Fang began to skillfully process the fish's internal organs and other steps. Bu Fang's movements were as smooth as flowing water. It was as if he was carrying out the depiction of a painting. The originally bloody and violent movements became strangely beautiful. Swish! After cleaning the fish, Bu Fang cut it open from the gap and flipped it to both sides. Then, the fish was like a round pancake lying on the chopping board. Bu Fang's finger lightly flicked the kitchen knife. Then he lightly made 5 or 6 cuts on the processed fish and patted the plump fish. Just like that, Bu Fang finished processing the fat fish. However, it was only just processed. The steps of roasting the fish weren't that simple. The surrounding people looked at Bu Fang in confusion. They didn't know what kind of fish dish Bu Fang was going to make. From the looks of it, it shouldn't be fish soup. However, if it was red braised fish, he shouldn't have cut the fish into this shape. There was no time to dry the fish. Therefore, not only were the surrounding people puzzled, even the chef, elder sister Mu, frowned in confusion. She wanted to guess what kind of dish Bu Fang was going to cook. Are there any vegetables? Bu Fang seemed to have thought of something and turned his head to look at Sister Mu, who was deep in thought. Elder sister Mu frowned again, nodded her head, and said, "There are vegetables, but very few. In the illusory spirit swamp, vegetables and spirit fruits are rare to begin with. They are even rarer than this fish." The corners of Bu Fang's mouth twitched. He turned his head to look at the processed fat fish and said, "Forget it. I'll provide the vegetables and spirit fruits." After saying that, Bu Fang took out many vegetables and spirit fruits from the system's storage space. There were even bottles and jars of seasoning. These were all things he prepared before the teleportation. The crowd was dumbfounded as they watched Bu Fang take out vegetables and seasoning from a storage space. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed like Bu Fang didn't lie. This guy was indeed a chef. Moreover, it seemed like he was planning to vacation in the illusory spirit swamp. Have you ever seen an adventurer come to the illusory spirit swamp with a storage space filled with not healing medicine, elixirs, but vegetables, fruits, and seasoning? Bu Fang took out the vegetables and washed them. He quickly cut them into pieces and placed them on a plate. He also cut the spirit fruits into pieces. After he was done, Bu Fang placed the fish into a basin. Then, he poured the various seasonings into it and slowly marinated it. During the marinating process, Bu Fang guided his true energy to vibrate the fish's body to speed up the marinating process. In less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Bu Fang finished marinating the fish. Then, he took out 2 gigantic spirit herb leaves from the system and wrapped them around the plump fish. Before wrapping the fish, he even smeared the fat fish with oil. Wrapping the fish with spirit herb leaves? What kind of dish was this guy trying to cook? This method, they had never seen it before. Wu Yunbai's eyes were filled with curiosity. As a young master of the White Cloud Villa, she had tasted many delicacies. The White Cloud Villa also had many specially invited chefs with superb culinary skills. Even so, Wu Yunbai had never seen the way Bu Fang cooked. Bu Fang ignored the gazes of the crowd. Once he started cooking, he would put his heart and soul into it. According to him, the dishes cooked this way would be filled with the chef's emotions. Taking out the large wok, Bu Fang placed a few wooden strips on top of the wok. Then he placed the fish wrapped in spirit herb leaves on top of the wooden strips. Bu Fang first soaked the wooden strips in water, so it was difficult for the rising flames to burn the wooden strips. Moreover, with the protection of Bu Fang's true energy, it was difficult for the wooden strips to be burned. The fat fish wrapped in spirit herb leaves on top of the wooden strips would be grilled by the flames. Bufong had no other choice. Grilling fish was supposed to be done using a professional oven. However, this place was not the kitchen of the store, and there was no oven. Therefore, Bufong had to improvise a tool for grilling fish. Even though the conditions were a little harsh, at least he could grill the fish this way. Bufong's strange actions completely dumbfounded everyone. There were even some people who started to sneer at him. After all, no one had ever seen such a strange way of cooking a dish. He did not even use the wok. Could this dish be eaten? Wrapping the fish in spirit herb leaves and grilling it with flames? Could a dish made in such a manner be eaten? Many of the serpent men looked at Bufong's actions with doubtful gazes. As for elder sister Mu, her eyes were shining as she thoughtfully watched Bufong's actions. In her eyes, every single one of Bufong's actions was as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. It was a manifestation of his culinary skills being integrated into his body. Gurgle, gurgle. White steam began to rise from the spirit herb leaves, and a rich aroma of fish immediately wafted out. This aroma was not strong at first. Everyone's noses twitched slightly, and they only felt that it smelled good. However, as the fish meat was gradually cooked, the aroma became stronger and stronger. It almost enveloped the entire place, and everyone's noses twitched. The little serpent woman hugged elder sister Mu's serpent tail and smacked her lips continuously. From time to time, saliva would drip down from her mouth. This aroma was too strong. When had the serpent men ever smelled such a rich aroma? It had completely lured out the gluttonous worms in their stomachs. The head elder's cheeks also trembled slightly as he looked at Bufong in disbelief. This guy, his culinary skills were actually this amazing. An intoxicated expression also appeared on Wu Yunbai's fair face. The shock in her heart was no less than the others present. As a human, she knew better than anyone else how difficult and innovative the dish Bufong was cooking was. Wrapping a dish in spirit herb leaves and grilling it. This was an extremely difficult task. Not only did it test Bufong's control over the fire, it also had a very strict requirement on Bufong's true energy control. This guy, Wu Yinbai muttered. At this moment, Bufong placed his hand on the spirit herb leaves. After feeling the temperature, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up. He twirled the kitchen knife in his hand and then cut open the spirit herb leaves that were bound together. The spirit herb leaves instantly bloomed. The moment the spirit herb leaves bloomed, a rich, oily juice splattered in all directions and a rich aroma filled the air. The aroma was accompanied by the steaming hot steam as it soared into the sky. Chapter 173. The fragrance wafted in all directions and lingered in the air, causing everyone to be intoxicated by it. They never imagined that the aroma of fish could reach such an alluring level. The moment Bufong cut open the spirit herb leaves, the aroma instantly captured their taste buds and intoxicated them. Wu Yinbai could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva as her large eyes stared fixedly at the steaming spirit herb leaves. Even though she could not clearly see the plump fish lying within the leaves due to the heat, just the aroma alone was enough to make her want to immediately taste this delicacy. Elder Sister Mu's body and mind trembled in disbelief. The aroma of this dish simply surpassed her understanding. She often cooked this fish, but even when she braised it, she could not bring out the aroma of the fish to such an extreme. Bufong's handling of the fish completely brought out the flavor of the fish. This young man was definitely a super amazing chef. When the little serpentine girl smelled the aroma, she became extremely greedy. She twisted her slender waist and swayed her little serpent tail as she arrived in front of the stove. She stuck her head out to take a look at the fish inside the spirit herb leaves. However, due to her height, she could only see the steaming hot air and not the plump fish. How infuriating! After observing for a while and not seeing anything, the little serpentine girl gave up. She turned to look at Bufong and asked in a childish voice, "Big brother human, this fish, can I eat it?" This was not only the little serpentine girl's thoughts, but also the thoughts of everyone present. They also wanted to know if the fish could be eaten. With such a fragrant aroma, everyone wanted to have a taste. Bufong glanced at the little serpentine girl. At this moment, this lass was no longer on the verge of tears like before. It seemed like the power of delicacies was really great to be able to attract this lass's attention. The corners of Bufong's mouth twitched as he lightly said, "Of course not." Everyone's expression stiffened. They did not understand. Why couldn't they eat it? This fish was so fragrant. Could it be that they couldn't eat it? The little serpentine girl's big eyes widened as her cheeks puffed up in anger. Elder Sister Mu also looked at Bufong in confusion. The dish was already cooked. Why didn't he let them have a taste? The little lass's simple request. Could it be that he couldn't even satisfy it? Bufong did not care about the expressions of the others. He picked up another stove and raised the temperature of the black wok. Then, he poured some oil into the wok and started stir-frying the vegetables. Bufong's movements of placing the seasonings were very skillful. There was basically no jerkiness in his movements. In just a short while, all the seasonings were ready. The expressions on everyone's faces were a little awkward. It turned out that Bufong's dish wasn't finished yet. No wonder he didn't allow the little snake girl to taste it. A chef naturally wouldn't allow customers to taste an unfinished dish. This was the basic principle of a chef. With a scoop of the spatula, Bufong poured the fragrant stir-fried ingredients onto the fish that was placed on top of the spirit herb leaves. Because the ingredients had been stir-fried, they were slightly viscous. Steaming hot, the fragrance permeated the air, and when combined with the fragrance of the fish, it gave off an indescribable, intoxicating aroma. Bufong finished cutting the fruits and placed them on top of the leaves. The fragrant and colorful spirit swamp grilled fish was finished. Bufong did not stir-fry the vegetables that were used as the seasonings too well. He only warmed them with oil. The color of the ingredients was still as lustrous as before, and it was extremely alluring. The fish meat was slightly quivering on top of the oil. The few slashes of the fish meat were pushed open due to the cooking. The white and tender fish meat was stained with the oil and sauce, emitting a fragrant aroma. Bufong twirled the knife in his hand and placed it on the chopping board. He calmly glanced at the crowd and said, "My dish is finished. Please have a taste." "Finished? You are finally King done." The time spent waiting for the grilled fish to be finished was simply the greatest torture. Looking at the piping hot grilled fish, the crowd suddenly felt an indescribable emotion in their hearts. Elder Sister Mu walked to the front of the grilled fish, and her eyes were filled with amazement. This was really too beautiful. The colors of the vegetables were colorful, and because they were stained with oil, they looked as if they were overflowing with color. The aroma of the fish meat was also completely set off. Without a doubt, this dish was impeccable. It was absolutely delicious. "Big brother, can you try it now?" The little serpentine girl impatiently asked once again. Bufong nodded his head and did not refuse again. The little serpentine girl was instantly elated. She pulled Elder Sister Mu's hand and urged, "Mother, hurry up and give me the fish meat." Elder Sister Mu was suddenly at her wit's end. She picked up her chopsticks and did not choose to pick up the seasonings. Instead, she directly picked up a piece of fish meat and sent it into the little serpentine girl's mouth. The moment the fish meat entered her mouth, everyone's gaze landed on the little serpentine girl. They wanted to see her reaction. The moment the little serpentine girl tasted the fish meat, her eyes widened and her face was filled with disbelief. This fish meat was really tastier than the fish meat cooked by her mother. Elder Sister Mu also narrowed her eyes, and her gaze landed on the grilled fish. Bufong did not put the grilled fish on a plate. Instead, he directly placed it on the fire pit and roasted it while tasting it. The flames underneath were spreading, the oil was boiling, and the fish meat was trembling. This seemed to be a gradual process. In the beginning, the fish would definitely be very fresh and tasty, but in the later stages, as the oil was roasted, the fish would gradually harden, and the taste would become richer and more sensational. Elder Sister Mu swallowed a mouthful of saliva and then used her chopsticks to pick up a piece of meat from the gills. This was the most delicious part of the fish meat. The moment the fish meat entered her mouth, elder sister Moo could not help but close her eyes in intoxication. She allowed the aroma of the fish meat to spread and linger in her mouth, making her feel as if she was walking on air. At this moment, the others could no longer sit still and came forward. Williambai also picked up a piece of fish meat and tasted it. She was completely captivated by the fish meat. This fish meat was the most delicious fish meat she had ever eaten. There seems to be spirit energy circulating within the fish meat. How is this possible? A first-grade spirit beast ingredient should not have any spirit energy left after being cooked, right? Wu Yanbai suddenly narrowed her eyes and was somewhat puzzled. Bu Fong seemed to have sensed her puzzlement. The corners of his mouth curled up as he calmly said, "This spirit herb leaf is actually a third-grade spirit herb. It contains rich spirit energy and has the effect of calming one's mind. After being cooked and processed by me, the spirit energy within the spirit herb was gathered into the fish meat. Moreover, the calming effect also shifted. Overall, this grilled fish can also be considered an elixir cuisine, even though it is only the simplest kind. The spirit energy came from the spirit herb. It could even shift the calming effect. Elixir cuisine? Wu Yunbai stared blankly for a moment. She realized that her knowledge reserves were somewhat insufficient. So, there were actually so many ways to learn about culinary arts. Elixir cuisine? Of course, she had heard of it. However, to cook an elixir cuisine was not something an ordinary chef could do. Even among the dozens of chefs in her White Cloud Villa, only one could cook an elixir cuisine. Furthermore, that chef's cultivation level was extremely terrifying. Cooking was only his hobby. This little chef in front of her, who was only a 5th-grade battle king, could actually cook an elixir cuisine? It was simply terrifying. When the head elder of the Serpent Men tribe heard Bu Fong mention the elixir cuisine, his gaze immediately fell on Bu Fong. He stared at him so intensely that even Bu Fong's hair stood on end. An indescribable excitement seemed to be revealed in the eyes of the Serpent Men tribe elder. Chapter 174. Elixir Cuisine. The head elder of the Serpent Men tribe took a deep look at Bu Fong. However, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and did not rush over to ask anything. Bu Fong did not notice the expression on the head elder's face either. As he looked at the crowd of serpent men who were intoxicated by his delicious dishes, the corners of his mouth curled up. Being able to intoxicate everyone with a dish cooked by a chef was the greatest affirmation of a chef. Seeing the smiles on the faces of the people who tasted the delicacies, the chef would also feel joy in his heart. A single grilled fish was not much. After everyone picked up a few chopsticks, they quickly finished it. There was no other way. After all, there were so many people present, and there was only one grilled fish. Everyone was looking at the spirit herb leaves that only had fish bones left. They really wanted to eat another one, but it was a pity that Bu Fong only cooked one serving of grilled fish. The little serpent woman licked her lips and narrowed her eyes. Even though she did not eat much fish, she was very satisfied. The spirit energy contained in the fish was more than enough for her to digest. After Bu Fong showed off his skills, no one doubted his culinary skills anymore. To be able to cook such a delicious grilled fish, Bu Fong's culinary skills had already amazed them. Even elder sister Mu was nodding her head. The more she ate, the more she understood the skill contained within the grilled fish. True energy cooking. Heavens! The young man in front of them had actually mastered the skill of true energy cooking. By using true energy on the food, he catalyzed the deliciousness of the food and made it even more fragrant. Moreover, he was able to retain the spirit energy within the dish. It was simply unbelievable. All right, after we've eaten and drunk our fill, everyone should focus. There's still a bunch of spirit beasts eyeing us covetously outside. We can't let our guard down. When the head elder of the Serpent Men tribe saw that everyone was still intoxicated by the delicacy, he could not help but let out a dry cough to bring everyone back to their senses. Outside the tribe, The gigantic figure that blotted out the sun was quietly coiled up. On top of the giant serpent's head was a dazzling blood crown. As it flicked its long and narrow tongue in and out, it could not help but let out a horrifying hissing sound. The low roars of the beast continued to resound, lingering above the vast, illusory spirit swamp. The first elder's words caused everyone to awaken from their delicacy. As they stared at the gigantic blood-crowned black swamp boa, their expressions involuntarily turned solemn. However, most of the serpent men were not too worried. The fact that the serpent men tribe was able to survive in a harsh place like the illusory spirit swamp for so long naturally meant that they could not rely solely on a 7th grade battle saint. Below the serpent men tribe, the entire swamp had been modified by the experts of the serpent men tribe. Gigantic protective magic arrays were engraved on the swamp, and every serpent men tribe was protected by such magic arrays. A 7th grade battle saint could only ensure that they would not be too passive in the face of an attack from a powerful enemy. However, this protective array was their true safeguard. Because this formation was passed down by the Serpentine Sovereign, it had powerful protective abilities. A mere 7th-tier spirit beast would not be able to destroy this formation. Head Elder, even if we have the protection of the formation, the herb garden is not within the range of protection. The aura of this beast is getting stronger and stronger. It seems like it is about to undergo its next molting. It won't be easy to deal with. The Serpent Man Battle Saint glanced at the black swamp boa and felt that it was extremely troublesome to deal with. Sometimes, spirit beasts were more difficult to deal with than humans. This was because spirit beasts had thick skin and powerful combat prowess. Many human experts were unwilling to encounter spirit beasts of the same level. The Ice Soul Monarch Lotus must be protected. We really need the matured lotus seeds of the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. We must not allow this beast to waste this spirit herb. The first elder solemnly said, with an extremely solemn expression. The Serpent Man Battle Saint also lightly sighed as a hint of determination flashed across his eyes. He was well aware of the importance of the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus to their Serpent Men tribe. Time flowed by minute. The atmosphere within the Snake People tribe, which was originally relaxed, once again became tense. Everyone could feel the solemn atmosphere that was spreading in the air. The fragrance emitted by the light blue Ice Soul Monarch Lotus Bud was becoming more and more intense. As the fragrance wafted through the air, it lingered in the air, making everyone feel refreshed, and their eyes glowed brightly. It seems like the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus is about to mature, the first elder said. Wu Yinbai also nodded her head and signaled the battle saint behind her to prepare for battle. With 2 battle saints guarding the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus, they should still have a chance to protect it. The problem was the large group of spirit beasts surrounding it. Even though the tribe was protected by formation, activating it would consume a lot of crystals. Wu Yinbai was not sure how many crystals the Serpent Men tribe had in reserve. If they did not have enough crystals, the formation would fail, and they would have to face an endless horde of disgusting spirit beasts. Bufang quietly stood at the side. His eyebrows were slightly furrowed as he looked at the gigantic blood-crowned black swamp boa. No one knew what he was thinking. He stared at the blood crown of the blood-crowned black swamp boa for a long time and could not help but smack his lips. He seemed to have some thoughts about that gigantic blood crown. This blood crown seems to be of good quality. It might be a good ingredient, but it will be a little difficult to get my hands on it. Bufang muttered to himself with a snort. Elder Sister Mu was standing beside Bufang. When she heard Bufang's muttering, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. This young man was indeed a chef. Even looking at the blood crown would make him think of ingredients. All of the essence of the blood-crowned black swamp boa was gathered on its blood crown. Without a doubt, that blood crown was an extremely nourishing ingredient and was definitely precious. However, the blood-crowned black swamp boa was about to shed its skin and advance to the 8th grade. How could it be used as an ingredient so easily? Bufang naturally did not know what Elder Sister Mu was thinking. He was only staring at the blood-crowned black swamp boa. The aroma was getting stronger and stronger. The aroma of this spirit herb seemed to possess some sort of magical power. It would cause the true energy within one's body to involuntarily boil, and a faint, icy cold feeling would envelop one's entire body. The Ice Soul Monarch Lotus is no ordinary spirit herb. If this spirit herb is handled properly, it can greatly increase one's cultivation level and speed up the circulation of true energy. This black swamp boa is also guarding the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus because it needs this spirit herb to advance. Elder Sister Mu seemed to have noticed that Bu Fong was puzzled and enthusiastically explained, "This beast won't be able to take away our Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. With the elders around, this beast won't be able to show off its might. If Yu Fu's father wasn't seriously injured, this beast..." Humph! I coldly snorted as he clenched his fists. He was extremely displeased with the black swamp boa. Yu Fu lightly sighed. She was the one who needed the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus the most. The chief elder wanted to guard the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus for the sake of her father, the chieftain of the Serpent Men tribe and a severely injured 7th grade battle saint. She did not expect that the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus would attract so many people and spirit beasts when it matured. That Wu Yunbai seemed to be from the White Cloud Villa, and that mysterious chef. She had no idea where he came from. He was definitely after the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus as well. However, she could not allow the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus to fall into the hands of others. She wanted to use the Monarch Lotus to save her father, which was the goal of all the Serpent Men. Chapter 175. The medicinal fragrance in the air was getting stronger and stronger. It was so strong that the true energy in many people's bodies seemed to be boiling just by smelling it. It was as if their bodies were on the verge of a breakthrough, just like boiling water. Many of the Serpent Men immediately coiled up their tails, sank their energy into their dantians, and began to cultivate on the spot while inhaling the medicinal fragrance. The Ice Soul Monarch Lotus was indeed an essential spirit herb for advancement. It was no wonder that even a powerful 7th grade spirit beast like the blood-crowned black swamp boa could not resist following the medicinal fragrance. Rumble. As the medicinal fragrance became stronger and stronger, the blood-crowned black swamp boa, which had been quietly coiled up, slowly raised its body. Its eyes were filled with disdain as it looked down at everything with its gigantic body. Its pitch-black forked tongue exuded a fishy smell as it waited for the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus that was about to ripen. Everyone in the tribe could not help but raise the true energy in their bodies as they stared at the giant serpent. The 2 battle saints were also standing proudly in the sky, exuding a powerful aura to rival the black swamp boa. Bu Fong's line of sight was almost attracted by the light blue flower bud. The light blue flower bud seemed to have a lustrous luster drifting out of it. It was like a firefly was emitting a brilliance in the dark night, and it reflected the cold moonlight that was sprinkling down from the heavens. The spirit beasts in the surroundings began to roar ferociously. Their auras became restless following the black swamp boa's movements. The black swamp boa straightened its body, slightly lowered its head, and gradually approached the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. The closer it got, the greater the pressure on the 2 battle saints. This black swamp boa was indeed a terrifying existence that had shed its skin 3 times. The pressure it was emitting was extremely powerful. Wu Yunbai's eyes were also wide open. Her lips were slightly parted as she observed the confrontation in the sky. It seemed like the Serpent Men and the human battle saints were at a disadvantage. "Look, it's about to bloom," someone suddenly cried out in alarm. His finger trembled as he pointed at the pale blue flower bud in the small pond. As time passed, the flower bud was actually slowly trembling. Everyone held their breaths. Suddenly, they felt as if something had broken free from its restraints and burst forth. A surge of ice-cold spiritual energy surged out of the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus like a tidal wave, layer upon layer. "It's starting," Wu Yunbai's eyes immediately lit up as she stared at the flower bud expectantly. The blooming of the monarch lotus, the splendor of youth. The beauty of the ice soul monarch lotus blooming in that instant is absolutely intoxicating. The serpent woman Yu Fu muttered as she stared at the flower bud floating in the pond. A light blue lotus petal quietly fell, accompanied by a surge of spirit energy. Then the second petal, the third petal. Every time it bloomed, a gigantic lotus leaf shadow would appear in the void. It was like the most beautiful aurora, and people couldn't help but be intoxicated by it. Bufang's eyes shone brightly. Such a beautiful scene was hard to come by. The blossoming of a seventh-grade elixir was always accompanied by a strange phenomenon, just like the phoenix blood herb. When it blossomed in the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix, there was also the scene of a phoenix soaring into the sky. It was incomparably beautiful. The Ice Soul Monarch Lotus was also a rank 7 spirit herb. The beauty of this phenomenon was in no way inferior to the beauty of the maturing phoenix bloodgrass. Hiss! Rumble! The ground began to tremble. Everyone's attention was drawn away from the beautiful scenery. The gigantic blood-crowned black swamp boa could no longer wait. It spat out its forked tongue as its lantern-like eyes suddenly emitted a resplendent light. Ferocity and killing intent surged within the giant serpent's eyes. The bodies of the two battle saints also tensed up as they shouted out in succession. Up in the sky, the beauty of the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus finally came to an end. Just like the splendor of youth, it was short-lived and only lasted for an instant. The blue petals actually began to rapidly wither, revealing a gigantic lotus pod. This lotus pod was the true essence of the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. Bastard! How dare you? The Serpent Man Elder let out a long roar. With a shake of his serpent tail, his entire body soared into the sky as a pitch-black spear appeared in his hand. The spear was emitting an ice-cold glow. The spear was thrust toward the giant serpent. As the giant serpent rolled on the ground, it charged toward the herb garden. Its target was the wilted monarch lotus's lotus pod. Buzz! The Serpent Man Elder did not dare to be careless in the slightest when facing this giant serpent. He used his full strength from the get-go. Surging true energy gushed out from his body and instantly transformed into thousands of spears that rained down from the sky toward the black swamp boa. An ominous glint appeared in the black swamp boa's eyes. Anyone who tried to stop it from obtaining the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus must die. The scales all over the black swamp boa's body emitted a cold glint. With a flick of its gigantic serpent tail, the spears were all blocked. The attacks from the spears were completely blocked and did not cause any damage to the serpent. So tough. The Serpent Man Elder's expression immediately changed. The human battle saint also let out a long roar. Using the void step, he charged forward and swatted his palm toward the giant serpent. His palm abruptly enlarged in the sky as true energy gathered and transformed into a gigantic palm that blotted out the sky. Every single detail of the palm was clearly visible and extremely realistic. Boom! The palm directly landed on the blood-crowned black swamp boa's head, causing its blood crown to slightly tremble. Bufang's pupils immediately shrank, and the corners of his mouth twitched. He had better not damage the blood crown. That was a rare ingredient. The blood-crowned black swamp boa was enraged. With a sharp hiss, it immediately revealed its sharp fangs and swept its gigantic serpent tail across the air. Rumble! It was as if the air was being torn apart by the serpent's tail. The human battle saint immediately let out a strange cry and used all his strength to protect his body. With a bang, he was sent flying like a rubber ball and instantly crashed into the ground. The Serpent Man Elder's fate was even more miserable. He was directly swallowed by the black swamp boa. The head elder's pupils shrank in disbelief. How could this beast be so powerful? Fortunately, the Serpent Man Elder quickly struggled out of the serpent's mouth. However, his entire body was drenched in blood, and he was in a miserable state due to the corrosion. The human battle saints also soared into the sky once again. Their killing intent soared into the sky as the two battle saints combined their true energy to unleash two terrifying true energy attacks toward the blood-crowned black swamp boa. The two battle saints were truly enraged. Their unbridled true energy attacks were causing great damage to the true energy vortexes within their bodies. However, they could not care less about it. The blood-crowned black swamp boa was truly suppressed, and it continuously retreated. Bestial roars were heard as the spirit beasts seemed to have gone mad as they charged towards the tribe. The Serpent Man tribe's head elder gave an order. Immediately, the magic formation on the tribe's land began to shine brightly. The spirit beasts that were charging toward the tribe all collided with the walls of the magic formation. Their heads were dizzy from the impact, but they were unable to break through the defense of the magic formation. The situation reached a stalemate for a while. In the sky, the black swamp boa's lantern-like eyes stared at the ice soul monarch lotus as it let out an unwilling roar. These two puny ants were actually trying to stop its advancement. This was unforgivable. Then, under the horrified gazes of the two battle saints, the blood-crowned black swamp boa's blood crown suddenly emitted a bloody glow. The black swamp boa's head was directly split open. This beast is trying to forcefully shed its skin. Be careful. Wu Yunbai turned pale with fright and hurriedly shouted. Chapter 176. The blood-crowned black swamp boa was going to forcefully shed its skin. Had this beast gone mad? A spirit beast shedding process was similar to that of a human's advancement. It required a quiet place to do so. If it was disturbed, it could very well lead to a cultivation deviation. Just like humans, spirit beasts could also go berserk. No one could have imagined that this beast would actually begin its fourth shedding under the protection of two battle saints. It was staking everything on a single throw and putting its life on the line. For the sake of the ice soul monarch lotus, the blood-crowned black swamp boa was going all out. However, even though it was said that the blood-crowned black swamp boa would go berserk if it was disturbed during its shedding process, it also meant that this beast's cultivation level was skyrocketing. It could very well be infinitely close to becoming an 8th grade spirit beast. 8th grade? How terrifying was that? If this beast was allowed to advance past the 8th grade, everyone present would most likely die. This protective formation was completely incapable of withstanding an attack from an 8th grade spirit beast. The head elder was also starting to panic. If this black swamp boa really succeeded in shedding its skin, then they would truly be finished. A hint of panic also appeared in Wu Yunbai's eyes. She had planned everything out, but she did not expect this beast to make such a decision. It was simply a crazy snake. Bang bang. 2 explosions rang out, and the two battle saints were directly knocked back. They staggered back a few steps in the air with ugly expressions on their faces. The blood-crowned black swamp boa's forehead cracked open and a layer of scales slowly peeled off. A surge of spirit energy surged out as if a storm was about to blow up. The excruciating pain caused the black swamp boa to howl uncontrollably. Its gigantic body began to writhe in the air, while its tail continued to lash out at the formation, causing the formation to tremble. The head elder's heart was also trembling along with the trembling of the protective formation. Please hold on. The head elder silently pleaded in his heart. However, as he pleaded, the protective formation trembled even more violently. The spirit beast attacks also became more and more ferocious. Every single spirit beast became extremely vicious. Damn it, we can't go on like this. Otherwise, if the formation is broken, everyone will die, and this tribe will be completely destroyed. Wu Yunbai's eyes flickered as she thought of a way out. Bufang scanned the surroundings and discovered that everyone's eyes were filled with fear. Obviously, they also understood how terrifying the consequences would be if the giant snake was successfully molted. Could the blood-crowned black swamp boa really succeed in molting? The Ice Soul Monarch Lotus was not far away. As long as this beast devoured the seed pod, left behind by the withered monarch lotus, it would not be difficult for it to advance. At that time, the enraged giant serpent would definitely not let go of those who obstructed its path. Grandmaster Awu, catch! Wu Yinbai took a step forward. Her body was as light as a swallow as she soared into the sky. With a flash of light in her hand, a long sword actually appeared. The long sword flickered with flowing light, and each flowing light seemed to blossom from the inside of the sword. Cloud Rising Sword? Miss, is this the semi-divine weapon given to you by the Villa Master, the Cloud Rising Sword? The eyes of the human battle saint called Awu widened as he subconsciously caught the glowing longsword. His entire body began to tremble in excitement. A semi-divine weapon. This was a semi-divine weapon. Furthermore, it was a semi-divine weapon recorded in the Celestial Arcanum's sex armory. The battle saint was so excited that he was about to cry. He was actually able to hold a semi-divine weapon and use it in battle. Even if he died, it would be worth it. With the semi-divine weapon in hand, the aura of the human battle saint immediately changed. He became extremely confident as true energy surged into the longsword. His entire body soared into the sky like a god of war, and his body seemed to be glowing brightly. Compared to before, the battle saint's aura had greatly increased. With a semi-divine weapon in hand, the world was mine. A mere little snake. Die for this Grandmaster Wu. The battle saint let out a long howl. Suddenly, sword light flickered and a sharp sword energy blotted out the sun. The surging sword energy filled the world and converged into a gigantic longsword that slashed toward the black swamp boa. I'm going to slash you, you bastard. The ruthlessness in the black swamp boa's eyes suddenly increased. With a long howl, a surge of spirit energy erupted from it. The 1/3 of its shed skin also began to tremble and was ruthlessly shredded by the sword energy. This was the shed skin of a 7th-grade spirit beast. If it was made into armor, it could even withstand a full-powered attack from a 5th-grade battle king. However, it was completely shredded by the sword energy. It was enough to show how terrifying the sword energy was. A semi-divine weapon indeed lived up to its reputation. This sword strike could be said to be earth-shattering. The black swamp boa also felt a strong sense of danger. It opened its mouth wide and roared at the long sword in the air. Then, it suddenly dashed forward and charged at the sword with the force of a thunderbolt. Rumble! Blood immediately splattered in the air. The shed skin of the gigantic snake was actually sliced into pieces and fresh blood splattered everywhere. However, the battle saint's pupils constricted as he felt a terrifying pressure bearing down on him. Then a monstrous black shadow surged out from the snake's mouth and instantly lashed at his body. Awu violently spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. His entire body was almost split into two by the attack. If it were not for the boost from the semi-divine weapon, he would have died a long time ago. However, Awu was also seriously injured and directly fell to the ground. The semi-divine weapon, the Cloud Rising Sword, also slid to the ground in the distance. Wu Yinbai was dumbfounded. The head elder was dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded. Didn't they already gain the upper hand? How did they manage to deal with it in an instant? What happened to the promise of slaying this bastard? What happened to the promise of dominating the world with a sword in hand? The Serpent Tribe Battle Saint's face was also extremely dark. Even with his semi-divine weapon, he was almost slapped to death by a bastard. This was simply a disgrace to the Battle Saints. The Black Swamp Boa's gigantic body crashed to the ground. A tiny snake that was 10 times thinner coiled in the air and flicked its tongue. It was even more ferocious than before. Like a bolt of lightning, it streaked across the sky and aimed at the monarch lotus seed pod. Half of the Black Swamp Boa's skin had also fallen off. This was the Black Swamp Boa's true form. Forced by the semi-divine weapon, it had no choice but to reveal its true form. The Black Swamp Boa was extremely thirsty. It had already defeated all the enemies that stood in its way and was about to obtain the monarch lotus seed pod. No one could stop it from advancing to become an 8th-grade spirit beast. When that time came, it would become the overlord of the entire illusory spirit swamp, a spirit beast that stood at the top of the food chain. The monarch lotus seed pod was glowing with a breathtakingly beautiful light. The blood-crowned black swamp boa's eyes were filled with thirst as it sped down at lightning speed. It was getting closer and closer. It was about to obtain the spirit herb that it yearned for day and night. It was about to advance to become an 8th-grade spirit beast and look down on the entire region. Boundless despair emerged in the eyes of the head elder and the others. They never expected that 2 7th-grade battle saints would be unable to stop this 7th-grade blood-crowned black swamp boa. Once this beast obtained the spirit herb, the entire serpentmen tribe would be destroyed. However, just when everyone was on the verge of despair, the sound of quiet footsteps rang out. A figure slowly walked out from the crowd and headed toward the blood-crowned black swamp boa. Wu Yunbai's pupils constricted as she stared in disbelief at the young man who was slowly walking out. How could it be him? Wu Yunbai was extremely puzzled. Why would mere 5th-grade Battle King step out at this time? Was he courting death? The corners of Bufang's mouth slightly curled up as he looked at the blood-crowned black swamp boa. Green smoke curled up from his hand, and a pitch-black kitchen knife suddenly appeared in his hand. Holding the kitchen knife, Bufang's pace slowly began to jog. Then his speed gradually increased until it became a sprint. In the pitch-black night, a young man holding a kitchen knife was running under the moonlight. Chapter 177. Was he crazy? Everyone blankly stared at the skinny figure, the figure wielding the kitchen knife, charging straight toward the blood-crowned black swamp boa. Was he planning to use his strength to fight against the black swamp boa? Was he trying to snatch the monarch lotus from the mouth of a spirit beast that was infinitely close to becoming an 8th-grade spirit beast? He was simply insane and overestimating himself. This was what everyone was thinking. If Bufang was a 7th-grade battle saint, they might think that Bufang's actions were very noble. However, Bufang was merely a 5th-grade battle king. In their opinion, Bufang's actions were extremely foolish. A 5th-grade battle king was as weak as an ant in front of the black swamp boa that had killed 2 7th-grade battle saints. Perhaps with a flick of its tail, this young man would be crushed into powder. Wu Yunbai sighed and helplessly shook her head. She originally admired Bufang because Bufang was a chef who could cook elixir cuisine. There are only a few chefs like him in the entire White Cloud Villa. However, even though this young man's culinary skills were not bad, his intelligence was worrying. Wasn't charging straight toward the black swamp boa the same as throwing his life away? No matter how much he needed the lotus pod, he should first weigh his own strength. Doing something that was beyond his strength was the same as throwing his life away. Elder Sister Mu's mind was also in a daze. Before she could react, Bufang had already charged out. By the time she realized what was going on and wanted to stop Bufang, it was already too late. Anai was also in a daze. Then his eyes began to burn with boiling hot blood. Damn it, this brother sure is courageous. He even dares to charge out as a 5th-grade battle king. I, a 6th-grade battle emperor, am actually cowering here. This is absolutely not allowed. Anai angrily roared. With a flick of his tail, he also planned to rapidly charge out. However, he had only dashed out a few meters when he was swung in the face by the head elder's tail. Stop right there. Stand behind me. What are you trying to show off? Is this the time for you to show off? The first elder furiously roared, causing Ani's face to turn deathly pale. He lowered his head and retreated to the back. However, his eyes were still filled with unwillingness. The way he looked at Bufang was already filled with admiration. The role model of our generation. Even in death, it was still a glorious death. After the blood-crowned black swamp boa had shrunk several times, its appearance had become even more ferocious, and its aura had also become extremely formidable. Its speed was so fast that it caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. It shot down like an arrow, as though it was going to pierce through everything. Suddenly, The blood-crowned black swamp boa's eyes twitched. In its field of vision, an ant-like human was charging straight at it. This human's aura was so weak that it couldn't even raise its interest to deal with him. Is this human out of his mind? Even those two powerful humans were almost killed by me. This human whose aura is clearly much weaker is charging forward to die? This was what the black swamp boa was thinking. Since that's the case, I'll just play with it. However, was Bufong really going to mindlessly charge forward? Bufong was not an idiot. While Bufong was charging forward, the true energy in his body slowly began to circulate. His true energy boiled and instantly filled his limbs, causing his aura to reach its peak. As he ran, the pitch-black kitchen knife in his hand gradually emitted a glow. The glow wasn't dense, but it was slowly growing. In the end, it dazzled everyone. Rumble. As Bufong took a step forward, the ground trembled slightly. The simple and unadorned pitch-black kitchen knife in his hand had completely transformed from its original small and shabby appearance into a huge golden kitchen knife. It was incomparably domineering and radiated light in all directions. It was so bright that it almost blinded everyone's eyes. What the hell? What the hell was that thing? All of the serpent men present felt a terrifying pressure instantly enveloping their bodies. It was a terrifying pressure that seemed to have seeped out from the depths of their bloodline, causing their bodies to involuntarily tremble in fear. The head elder's entire body was trembling like a leaf. He had never shown such a terrified expression before, not even when he was facing the serpentine sovereign. This kind of fear did not originate from the suppression of strength, but from a suppression from the depths of his bloodline. With a loud thud, all of the serpent men present knelt on the ground. That kind of trembling and palpitating feeling forced them to kneel. Wu Yunbai's eyes widened. Her mouth was wide open as if an apple had been stuffed into it. Her face was filled with disbelief. What exactly was going on? Why were all of these serpent men kneeling on the ground? Ding, ding, ding. In the distance, the cloud rising sword that had fallen to the ground suddenly began to vibrate. Wu Yunbai, who had a telepathic connection with it, immediately felt a sense of suffocation. She could sense fear from the cloud rising sword. A semi-divine weapon had a spirit, so the cloud rising sword naturally had a spirit as well. How could a sword with a spirit fear an ordinary object? Wu Yunbai raised her head once again and stared intently into the distance. She stared at the young man who was sprinting away with a golden kitchen knife. Was that kitchen knife a F*King semi-divine weapon? Was this a joke? Which damned blacksmith would forge a semi-divine weapon kitchen knife? Did he not know that this was a reckless waste of a treasure? Wu Yunbai was furious. The most infuriating part was that she felt that the kitchen knife seemed to be of a higher grade than her cloud-rising sword. Her White Cloud Villa's semi-divine weapon was actually inferior to a kitchen knife. How embarrassing. As Bufong ran faster and faster, the kitchen knife in his hand became extremely huge. He could only carry it on his shoulder as he ran against the wind. At first, the blood-crowned black swamp boa did not think much of Bufong. However, when the pitch-black kitchen knife in the human's hand glowed and transformed into a gigantic golden kitchen knife, the blood-crowned black swamp boa was stunned. Its galloping figure suddenly froze, as if it had been frozen by the polar ice, completely losing its ferocity from before. Roar! A dragon's roar surged out from the golden kitchen knife on Bufong's shoulder. It immediately soared into the sky, as if there was a phantom of a divine dragon swimming around. Boom! All of the serpent men crouched even lower. The blood in their bodies seemed to be boiling. What the F***ck? A dragon's roar. This kitchen knife is made of dragon bones. Was there any humanity left? Do you still want me to live? Dragon bone, kitchen knife? What a reckless waste of a treasure. That was the thought in everyone's mind. Using dragon bones to make a kitchen knife was indeed a waste. However, Bufong did not care. This was his god of cooking set, and it was made of dragon bones. What was wrong with that? Could not be. If not, why don't you bite me? Bite the knife. Bufong stood in front of the monarch lotus and stopped in his tracks. With the kitchen knife on his shoulder, he slightly panted. A whistling sound came from the sky. The blood-crowned black swamp boa was charging down, but no longer had that oppressive aura. In the face of a dragon's might, its serpent's might was nothing. Bufong stood in front of the monarch lotus and calmly stared at the blood-crowned black swamp boa. He slowly gripped the kitchen knife with both of his hands and then suddenly swung it. The kitchen knife emitted a resplendent glow and drew a beautiful arc in the air, making an intimate contact with the descending blood-crowned black swamp boa. Chapter 178. Bang! The back of the dragon bone kitchen knife directly smacked the body of the blood-crowned black swamp boa that was charging down like an arrow. In an instant, the seventh-grade spirit beast was actually sent flying as if it was a ball. Under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, this insufferably ferocious spirit beast was ruthlessly smacked into the ground in the distance, causing the ground to cave in from the impact. Bufong's hand that was holding onto the kitchen knife slightly trembled. He immediately grinned and sucked in a breath of cold air. The snake was really tough. The web between his thumb and forefinger was about to split open. After the blood-crowned black swamp boa was sent flying like a bullet by Bufong, it suddenly charged up again and spat out its forked tongue toward Bufong. A ruthless glint flashed in its eyes. Bufong raised his eyebrows as he lifted the kitchen knife. He glanced at the black swamp boa, then slowly walked toward the snake. The surrounding spirit beasts had also stopped ramming into the magic array and were all crawling on the ground. The dragon might within the dragon bone kitchen knife was completely suppressing them, rendering them unable to move. Bufong, who was holding onto the handle of the dragon head vegetable with one hand and carrying the kitchen knife on his shoulder, slowly walked forward. The black swamp boa was somewhat cowering as it stared at Bufong in fear. It was a snake-type spirit beast with the bloodline of the dragon race flowing through its veins. Every time the blood-crowned black swamp boa shed its skin, it would purify its bloodline and evolve toward the dragon race. Now that it was facing the true might of a dragon, how could it have the courage to resist? Crack, crack. The skin on the black swamp boa's body was still continuously falling off. Its body was also writhing in pain. The pain of shedding was not something a human could understand. The shedding process was already nearing its end. If it did not swallow the seed pod of the ice soul monarch lotus, it was obvious that its shedding process was destined to fail. And if it failed to shed its skin, its vitality was destined to be severely damaged, and it might not be able to recover even after several hundred years. It thought that the appearance of the ice soul monarch lotus was its fortuitous encounter, but who knew that a young man with a dragon bone kitchen knife would appear out of nowhere? Was the heavens playing with snakes? Bufong brandished the dragon bone kitchen knife and abruptly pressed it down in front of the blood-crowned black swamp boa. A faint golden glow circulated on the surface of the kitchen knife and spread out like smoke, filling up the black swamp boa's snake-like nose. The body of the black swamp boa trembled. It did not have the courage to resist. This was the suppression of the bloodline. Bufong indifferently swept his gaze over the black swamp boa. The black swamp boa was completely unable to resist the dragon bone kitchen knife. The dragon bone kitchen knife was able to suppress ordinary 7th-grade spirit beasts. However, when it came to spirit beasts like the black swamp boa and the wandering dragon cow, it had an absolute suppression effect. That was because these spirit beasts evolved into dragons, and they were born with a natural reaction to the might of a dragon. Poochie! The dragon bone kitchen knife slashed down, and blood splashed everywhere. Cold blood flowed all over the ground. But Bufong's expression did not change. The black swamp boa was writhing on the ground. Since it wasn't easy for you to reach this level, I'll cut off your blood crown today. Scram, Bufong indifferently said. The black swamp boa continuously hissed and stuck out its pitch-black tongue. Its eyes were filled with regret and unwillingness. However, when it saw the golden kitchen knife on Bufong's shoulder, it ultimately chose to retreat. With a hiss, the blood crown, oh, the black swamp boa, without the blood crown, swayed its body and rapidly swam into the boundless, illusory spirit swamp. In an instant, it disappeared without a trace. After the other spirit beasts lost their guide, they also retreated one after another and instantly disappeared like flowing water. Bufong lightly exhaled. The dragon bone kitchen knife in his hand suddenly dimmed. The glow gradually dissipated and the knife returned to its original pitch-black appearance. Then, it turned into a wisp of green smoke and entered his wrist. Bufong's body slightly staggered. The dragon bone kitchen knife consumed too much true energy. Even though his true energy of a 5th-grade battle king was much greater than that of a 4th-grade battle spirit, it was already his limit to chop off the black swamp boa's blood crown. If he wanted to kill the black swamp boa, he would definitely not be able to do so with his current true energy. The scales of the black swamp boa were simply too thick. It would take a lot of true energy for Bufong to chop it off. Furthermore, he was unable to gather enough true energy to supply the dragon bone kitchen knife. After stabilizing his footing, Bufong walked toward the 2 fist-sized blood crowns that had fallen to the ground. These are the real blood crowns of the black swamp boa. Even though the blood crowns on its gigantic body looked decent, they were all fake. All of the essence was concentrated within these 2 fist-sized blood crowns. After losing the supply of spirit energy from the black swamp boa, the black swamp boa gradually hardened. However, it did not harden too much and became similar to a fungus. A rich amount of spirit energy and essence was being emitted from the blood crowns. The corners of Bufong's mouth immediately twitched. It was not a bad idea to chop off this blood crown. As an ingredient, this blood crown was an excellent ingredient. After storing the blood crowns into the system's storage space, Bufong turned around and walked toward the monarch lotus's seed pod. The ice soul monarch lotus had withered and only blossomed for an instant. Even though it was breathtakingly beautiful, it only left behind a momentary brilliance. After it withered, all that was left behind was a light blue seed pod. Within the seed pod were numerous jade-like lotus seeds. After forcefully activating his true energy, Bufong forced out the dragon bone kitchen knife and chopped off the monarch lotus seed pod. Bufong carried the monarch lotus seed pod and walked toward the crowd. The crowd was still in a state of shock. Some of them did not even know what had just happened. How did the insufferably arrogant black swamp boa retreat just like that? How did the ferocious spirit beast Tide disappear just like that? You chased away the blood-crowned black swamp boa. Wu Yinbai pointed at Bufong in disbelief. The disaster that everyone thought was unavoidable was actually resolved by a chef who popped out of nowhere. Furthermore, he used a kitchen knife to resolve it. This is the seed pod of the monarch lotus. Bufong did not answer Wu Yinbai. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the Serpent Men tribe's head elder who was still trembling on the ground. When the Serpent Men tribe's head elder heard Bufong's words, he finally raised his head. When he saw the light blue seed pod, his eyes immediately lit up. Yes, this is the seed pod of the monarch lotus. Young master, the head elder wanted to say something but hesitated. If Bufong was still the same obscure chef who only knew how to cook a table full of delicious dishes, the head elder would definitely snatch the seed pod back. However, after witnessing the terrifying might displayed by Bufong just now, snatch your sister. You would have to kneel down the moment he took out his kitchen knife. How was he supposed to snatch it back? Take it. Didn't you say you were going to save someone? Let's see if you can save someone. There are quite a lot of lotus seeds here. Just leave a few for me, Bufong simply said as he tossed the seed pod to the head elder. The head elder was stunned for a moment and subconsciously caught the seed pod. Young master, all right, young master, please follow me. The head elder gave Bufong a serious look. Then, he swayed his body and gestured for Bufong to follow him. In the distance, Yu Fu and the others were crying tears of joy. They originally thought that they would not be able to obtain the seed pod of the monarch lotus. They did not expect that Bufong would actually hand the seed pod over to them. With this, their father would be saved. With the lotus seeds of the ice soul monarch lotus, there was definitely hope to save the bedridden chieftain. The group slowly walked forward. The head elder instructed a few of his subordinates to tidy up the ruined herb garden. Then, he led Bufong and the others toward the cluster of buildings. Soon, the group arrived in front of a slightly dilapidated low house. Even though this house was low and dilapidated, it was much more luxurious than the other serpent men's residences. The head elder led Bufong, Yu Fu, and Wu Yunbai into the house. The small house suddenly became a little crowded. A beautiful serpent woman who was sitting in the small house suddenly stood up and looked at the group in astonishment. "Mother, father can be saved." Once Yu Fu returned to the room, she twisted her waist and pounced toward the beautiful serpent woman. The beautiful serpent woman was stunned. She subconsciously looked toward the elderly head elder. The head elder smiled at her and waved a light blue seed pod in his hand. "The monarch lotus has bloomed, and the seed pod has matured. Chieftain, there is hope." Chapter 179. Great Elder, is there really hope for you, Fong? The beautiful serpent woman froze for a moment before tears began to flow from her eyes. She covered her mouth and began to whimper. Her husband could finally be saved. The former #1 expert of the serpent men tribe was about to return. The lotus seed within the monarch lotus can definitely save you, Fong. The great elder glanced at the beautiful serpent woman and couldn't help but exclaim. Bufong and Wu Yunbai didn't say a word. They both stood in the distance and watched quietly. The great elder solemnly lifted the lotus seed. He abruptly activated his true energy in his palm and sucked out a lotus seed that was as resplendent as glass. The lotus seed was sparkling and translucent, as if it was made of emerald. A rich spirit energy and fragrance instantly permeated the entire small house, intoxicating everyone. Bufong's eyes lit up as he inhaled the fragrance. This spirit energy, this fragrance was indeed a good match for the phoenix blood herb and the three stripes path understanding fruit. Holding the lotus seed in his hands, the great elder abruptly tightened his grip on it. His true energy surged and crushed the lotus seed, turning it into a puff of lotus powder that floated above his palm. The great elder gently waved his hand and sent the powder into the mouth of the unconscious serpent man, Yu Fu. Yu Fu's eyes sparkled like two gems as she stared hopefully at the serpent man who had absorbed the powder of the lotus seed. After the serpent man absorbed the lotus powder, his face immediately blossomed with brilliance. A light blue stream of light flashed across his face. Then there was no more movement. "Huh, that's it." Bufong was dumbfounded as he looked at the great elder. One lotus seed did not seem to wake him up at all. What's going on? This time, not only Bufong was stunned, but the great elder was also slightly stunned. How could there be no effect? The seed of the monarch lotus should be able to save the serpent man. The great elder, who refused to believe it, crushed another lotus seed and sent it into the serpent man's mouth. However, just like the first seed, the serpent man's face only flickered with a blue light for a while, and then there was no more movement. Each seed of the monarch lotus was extremely precious. Using 2 in a row should be enough to wake the serpent man up. Gritting his teeth, the first elder crushed another pill with his trembling hands. There were only 8 lotus seeds in total, and he had used 3 to save people. This was definitely a big move, but he still did not wake up. The great elder's lips began to tremble. He planned to take out another lotus seed, but was stopped by Wu Yunbai, who could no longer bear to watch. "Don't waste the lotus seeds. If he can wake up, the first lotus seed would have been enough to save him." 3 lotus seeds is already the limit. Any more would be a waste, Wu Yunbai said calmly, her voice somewhat cold. The great elder loosened his grip on the lotus seed. His face was ashen. It seemed that there was really no hope. The serpent woman and Yu Fu were already on the verge of collapsing. The hope that had risen in their hearts had been ruthlessly crushed. Wu Yunbai walked in front of the serpent man. A cloud of misty, true energy floated in her hand and enveloped the serpent man's chest. Her mind sank into it, as if she was sensing the serpent man's internal injuries. His body has lost a serious amount of spirit energy. Even if you give him more monarch lotus seeds, it will only be a waste. Lotus seeds can enhance spirit energy and healing abilities, but they cannot restore spirit energy. What you are doing is a waste of spirit medicine, Wu Yunbai said bluntly. She retracted her hand, and her gaze fell on the crowd. The great elder let out a long sigh. Yu Fu and her daughter's eyes were also red. Their hopes were dashed, and it was already good that they did not burst into tears. Spirit energy? Bufang narrowed his eyes. A ray of light seemed to flash through his mind. Then he took a step forward and slowly arrived in front of the serpent man. He stared at the serpent man's face for a long time. Are you sure he has lost a serious amount of spirit energy? After staring at the serpent man for a long time, Bufang suddenly turned his head and asked Wu Yunbai. Wu Yunbai was instantly speechless. She saw that Bufang had stared at the serpent man for so long and thought that he had discovered something new. In the end, he still asked her, "Then why did you stare at him for so long?" My White Cloud Villa is proficient in all kinds of miscellaneous knowledge. Medicine is also considered one of the compulsory subjects of the White Cloud Villa, so you don't have to doubt my diagnosis, Wu Yunbai said with incomparable confidence and pride. Bufang nodded and ignored the proud Wu Yunbai. Instead, he turned to look at the great elder, stretched out his hand and said, "Since these lotus seeds are useless, then give me the lotus seed pod and the rest of the seeds." The great elder did not say anything and directly handed the lotus seed pod to Bufang. With a flash of light in Bufang's hand, the lotus seed pod was kept into the system's dimensional storage. After keeping the lotus seed pod, Bufang turned his head and asked the beautiful serpent man who was hugging Yu Fu and sobbing softly, "Do you have a stove here?" The beautiful serpent man gave Bufang a puzzled look and subconsciously pointed to the back of the hut. Bufang nodded his head and walked toward the shabby stove in the corner of the room. Sweeping a glance at the stove, Bufang discovered that it was extremely shabby. There was a rice jar around it. When he opened the jar, there was not even a grain of rice inside. The Serpent Men tribe living in the illusory spirit swamp were indeed living in tough conditions. Skillfully lighting the fire and scrubbing the wok, Bufang actually started working around the stove. Wu Yunbai was startled when she saw Bufang's actions. Then, as if she had thought of something, her eyes slightly opened and a brilliant light circulated within them. Could it be that this guy is going to cook an elixir cuisine? Is he planning to use the elixir cuisine to save the serpent man? But can the elixir cuisine really save a man who has lost his vital energy? Wu Yunbai muttered doubtfully. The loss of vital energy was very normal. Some weak people would lose their vital energy at any time. However, if the loss of vital energy was too severe, then there would be a problem. Bufang took out some rice from the system's storage space. This was the rice used for egg-fried rice in the store. Each grain was plump and full. Bufang originally planned to cook it himself, but he did not expect that he would not use it in the illusory spirit swamp. Now that he was using it here, it became necessary. After washing the rice, he placed it into the wok to simmer. Bufang gathered some of the true energy that he had just recovered and condensed it into the dragon bone kitchen knife. With a flash of his hand, a red, fungus-like blood crown appeared in his hand. "This is the blood crown black swamp boa's blood crown?" Wu Yunbai lightly covered her small mouth with a face full of astonishment. This guy, he even left this thing behind? Wouldn't it mean that the black swamp boa suffered a great loss? Not only did it not get anything, it even had to stick its own blood crown on it. However, if it was this blood crown, then it might actually work. The blood crown was the essence of the black swamp boa and was the main source of its vital energy. Using it to cook the elixir cuisine might actually be useful. Bufang used the dragon bone kitchen knife to carefully cut off a small piece of the blood crown. After dicing it into small pieces, he put away the blood crown. With a flash of light, a piece of fat and tender wandering dragon meat appeared in his hand. He also diced the wandering dragon meat, mixed the two together, and poured them into the wok. When the lid was removed, the head elder and the other two elders were stunned by the surging hot steam accompanied by the refreshing fragrance of the rice. The serpent beauty and Yu Fu turned their heads to look at Bufang and saw that Bufang was actually cooking porridge. They were a little surprised. Yu Fu understood Bufang much better than the serpent beauty. She quickly guessed that Bufang might be cooking the elixir cuisine, so her eyes once again emitted a glimmer of hope. Perhaps her father could still be saved. The white foam in the wok was bubbling and the rice inside was expanding. It emitted a rich rice fragrance, giving off a mellow feeling. After pouring in the two seventh-grade spirit beast ingredients, the minced blood crown and the diced wandering dragon meat, Bufang's expression turned solemn. His true energy had not recovered much, and he did not know whether he could last until this bowl of elixir cuisine was finished. Fortunately, the complexity of this porridge was not as difficult as the other elixir cuisines. Perhaps he had enough true energy. I have to make a snack that can help me recover true energy. Otherwise, it will be troublesome every time I exhaust my true energy, Bufang muttered as beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. However, in the end, the elixir cuisine was still finished. The white rice porridge turned a little blood red. Pieces of dark red minced beef floated within it. A rich fragrance and spirit energy floated above the porridge. A porridge cooked with ingredients from two seventh-grade spirit beasts was not ordinary at all. Bufang scooped the porridge into a worn-out ceramic bowl, which was just enough for one bowl. Then, he carried the porridge, which was emitting spirit energy, toward the stunned crowd. Chapter 180. Hiss hiss. With a faint hiss, Bufang held up a bowl of porridge. The spirit energy above the porridge seemed to have transformed into a tiny snake, constantly swimming around. The aroma coiled around the tiny snake as the two complemented each other. This is the elixir cuisine, Wu Yunbai exclaimed in disbelief. Bufang gave her a puzzled look, not understanding why she was making such a fuss. Was cooking a bowl of elixir cuisine that strange? Of course not. The reason why Wu Yunbai was surprised was because Bufang was able to cook it so easily. Furthermore, he was able to do it when his true energy was depleted. The external factors were also terrible. That stove? Wu Yunbai had never seen anything worse than this stove. It was questionable whether this kind of stove could even cook ordinary dishes, let alone the more demanding and difficult elixir cuisine. Bufang did not care about Wu Yunbai's astonishment. He carried the steaming hot bowl of porridge to the serpent man. Yu Fu and the beautiful serpent woman's eyes were fixed on him, filled with hope. The great elder's eyes were filled with gratitude. Bufang's elixir cuisine was their only chance. Feed it to him. Bufang glanced at the serpent man and blanked out for a moment. Then, he turned his head and said to the beautiful serpent woman, this was her husband, and Bufang did not have the habit of feeding men porridge. The beautiful serpent woman carefully took the bowl from Bufang's hands. This was her last hope. Using a shabby spoon to scoop up a spoonful of porridge, the tiny spirit energy, snakes coiled around the spoon as if they were coiling around a tree trunk. The beautiful serpent woman's face was filled with caution. She pouted her red lips and gently blew at the hot porridge in the spoon, trying to cool it down, even though this little bit of heat could not harm the serpent man at all. After feeding the serpent man a mouthful of porridge, the porridge turned into a tiny snake the moment it entered his stomach and instantly burrowed into his body, filling and nourishing it. The wandering dragon cow meat contained a vast amount of spirit energy. Coupled with the essence energy from the blood-crowned black swamp boa, the serpent person's ice-cold body began to heat up as if it was being roasted in flames. The beautiful serpent woman's eyes immediately widened, and the hand holding the porridge began to tremble. She forcefully suppressed the excitement in her heart and fed the serpent man spoonful after spoonful. When Bufang saw this scene, the corners of his mouth curled up imperceptibly. It really worked? Wu Yanbai was truly shocked. To be able to cook an elixir cuisine under such harsh conditions, just how terrifying was this young man's culinary skills? Even the chefs from the White Cloud Villa were no match for him. The great elder finally heaved a sigh of relief. Yufu also narrowed her eyes. After continuously drinking half a bowl of porridge, she suddenly felt the body of the person in her embrace slightly tremble. That slight tremble caused her heart to tremble along with it. Her husband finally had a reaction. Immediately after, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the serpent person, Yufeng, slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with bewilderment. The serpent person family's sorrow had finally turned into joy. Bufang was also a little happy in his heart. However, what made him even happier was that he had finally completed his mission in the illusory spirit swamp. He had harvested a spirit herb that he was very satisfied with. It was a 7th grade spirit herb, the seed pod and lotus seeds of the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus. Spirit herb harvested complete. Next, teleportation to return. Preparing for teleportation. Just as Bufang was quietly watching the serpent person family reunite with joy, the solemn voice of the system suddenly rang out in his mind. Bufang was slightly taken aback. It turned out that it was time for him to return. Teleportation preparations complete. Beginning teleportation. 3, 2. As the system began its countdown, a white speck of light suddenly appeared above Bufang's head. The speck of light began to rapidly draw a bright magic array. Wu Yunbai was the first to notice Bufang's strange phenomenon. When a magic array appeared, Wu Yunbai's eyes widened. What the hell was this kid trying to do? That magic array was so mysterious. It was a magic array that Wu Yunbai had never seen before. The serpent person family also came to their senses. Yufu opened her mouth and said, "Benefactor, what happened to you? Are you going to leave?" Bufang felt that the magic array above his head was about to be completed. He couldn't help but remember something important. He stared blankly for a moment, then looked at Yufu with a serious expression and said, "That, beauty, I have another question to ask you. Since your father's body is too weak, the Blood Crown Wandering Dragon Beef Porridge will only be able to sustain his essence energy circulation for half a month." What? Yufu was slightly taken aback. The serpent person Yufeng, who had just crawled up from the teleportation, was also taken aback. This bowl of porridge could only sustain his essence energy for half a month? Didn't that mean that he would return to that weak state after half a month? Benefactor, is there no way to solve this problem? Yufeng asked anxiously. Finally, there was a way to save him. He had to seize it. Lying in bed every day would make his wife and daughter worry. This kind of thing would make Yufeng feel ashamed. Yufu also looked at Bufang with hope. She believed that Bufang would definitely have a way to save her father. Bufang pondered for a moment. A weak whirlwind began to appear around his body. The wind was getting stronger and stronger. In half a month, go to the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire and look for Fong Fong's little store. Once you arrive, you'll be saved, Bufang said. In half a month, the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire, Fong Fong's little store. Yufu deeply remembered Bufang's words in her heart. Hey, don't go yet. The Ice Soul Monarch Lotus's seed is still in your hands. I want to trade with you. Wu Yunbai finally came to her senses. This Bufang was going to teleport away. He actually opened a teleportation array on the spot. Did he have to be so high profile? What? This woman wants to trade the Ice Soul Monarch Lotus's seed with me? Bufang raised his eyebrows and then expressionlessly looked at Wu Yunbai. The latter's shouts were already being drowned out by the howling of the wind. You want the lotus seed? Then come to the imperial city and look for me personally, Bufang said coolly. As soon as he finished speaking, the howling of the wind and the teleportation array shrank. Along with Bufang, the entire person disappeared. Looking at the empty room, Wu Yunbai was furious. He actually teleported away on the spot. Didn't this guy know that he would be struck by lightning for acting so pretentiously? In Wu Yunbai's memory, only the teleportation array drawn by array masters could produce a teleportation array that appeared in the air. The imperial city of the light wind empire, right? I will definitely find you. Wu Yunbai secretly snorted in her heart. Father, our benefactor asked us to go to the imperial city of the light wind empire. How long does it take to get from the illusory spirit swamp to the imperial city of the light wind empire? Yufu had never been to the imperial city, or, in other words, she had never left the Serpent Men tribe, so naturally, she did not know. The Serpent Man Yufeng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He rubbed Yufu's head and grinned. It's not far. From here to the imperial city of the light wind empire, it will take half a month. The wind howled and then swept through the entire room. A dot of light emerged and gradually formed the entire teleportation array. Amidst the howling wind, a figure slowly emerged from the wind. Bufang's emaciated figure walked out from the wind and stood in his room. The familiar smell, the familiar feeling, made his heart suddenly feel comfortable. The store is still the most comfortable, Bufang sighed. After staying in the illusory spirit swamp for so long, he felt sticky all over. The first thing he did after returning was not to look at the spirit herbs he obtained, but to rush straight to the bathroom. For a chef with a small obsession with cleanliness, being dirty was the most unacceptable thing. However, Bufang did not know that while he was happily bathing, the outside of the store had unknowingly been filled with people. Chapter 181. Still not open? Looks like there's no hope today. I've already come here 3 times. What's wrong with Owner Boo? He hasn't opened for business for almost 2 days? Could he be researching a new dish? Owner Boo has changed. He wasn't like this in the past. There were many people gathered at the entrance, causing the originally spacious alleyway to become a little crowded. They were all standing in front of Bufang's store and whispering to each other. Ouyang Xiaoyi frowned as she charmingly stood at the entrance of the store. From time to time, she would turn her head around to look at the tightly shut doors. Her cherry lips immediately pouted as she thought, this smelly boss. He didn't even inform us in advance that he wasn't going to open for business. Fatty Jean, with his plump belly, stretched out his thick neck in an attempt to peek inside the store to see if Owner Boo was researching a new dish. However, he quickly gave up because he couldn't see anything inside the store at all. Furthermore, there wasn't any aroma wafting out of the store either. Thinking about it, he probably wasn't researching a new dish. Xiaoyi, let's go back. It looks like Owner Boo won't open for business again today. Xiao Yinyu, who was wearing a veil, glanced at the interior of the store with her beautiful eyes. Then, her gaze fell on the charming Ouyang Xiaoyi as she softly said, Luo Sanyang was a little hot-tempered. At this moment, she could barely stand still. If it wasn't for Wan Er, who was holding onto the food boxes and constantly pulling her, she might have already barged into the store to take a look. However, the consequences of barging in might be a little miserable. Blackie was lying on the ground. Its eyes rolled around as it sized up the group of people. The corners of its mouth involuntarily curled into a human-like smile, as if it was somewhat amused. However, Blackie was also surprised as to why Bufang wouldn't open for business for 2 days. However, this did not affect him much, even though he would lose the delicious sweet and sour ribs. Whoosh! Water flowed down and slid past Bufang's fair skin. His hair was stuck to his body because of the water. When Bufang flung his hand, water immediately splashed in all directions. Warm steam rose up, making the eyes hazy and hazy. After taking a shower, Bufang's entire body seemed to be emitting warmth. He used a towel to dry his wet hair and walked out of the bathroom with a comfortable expression. Taking a shower after being tired was simply the most comfortable thing in the world. If he could eat delicious food at this time, he was so happy that he was better than a deity. With a long robe draped over his thin body, Bufang slowly walked to the window. The window was tightly shut, so he could not see the dark sky outside. His long hair had already dried a little after being wiped with a towel, but it was still a little damp. Bufang pushed open the window, and the cold wind immediately whistled in and hit Bufang's damp hair. making him feel refreshed. Holy sh*t. The window was open. The King Onorbu is in the shop. Damn, did Onorbu sleep like a pig for 2 days? We made such a big noise and didn't wake him up? Onorbu actually didn't go out. What kind of unspeakable things is he doing in the house alone? Could it be that he is simply researching a new dish? As soon as the window was opened, and before Bufang could take a breath of fresh air, a clamor came from the alley. Those voices were filled with surprise and joy, as well as thick resentment. Bufang was stunned. He stretched out his head and looked downstairs. His wet hair instantly drooped down and brushed past his face, making him feel a little cold. Why are there so many people? What is everyone doing? Bufang asked in confusion as he looked at the group of people who were glaring at him while gnashing their teeth. The people downstairs were furious. Onorbu, why do you have such an innocent expression? Come down. We promise we won't beat you to death. You closed the shop for 2 days without saying a word, and now you're asking us why we're gathered here. Suddenly, the group of people stared at Bufang like a resentful wife, causing Bufang's body to tremble and his hair to stand on end. Smelly boss, what are you doing? Why isn't the store open for the past 2 days? Ouyang Xiaoi ran out of the store and angrily shouted at Bufang. For the past 2 days, she had come to the store early in the morning and waited outside for a long time. She thought that the smelly boss would open the shop, but in the end, the door was really closed for 2 days and did not move at all. When Bufang heard Ouyang Xiaoi's angry words, his pupils immediately shrank and the corner of his mouth twitched. He suddenly remembered. He seemed to have forgotten to hang a closed sign on the entrance of the store when he went to the illusory spirit swamp. Didn't I hang a sign on the door that says it's closed? Bufang calmly asked the crowd below. The crowd shook their heads in unison. If he had hung a closed sign, they would not have waited here like idiots. This was the trust between people. Oh, then someone's naughty dog must have picked up the closed sign and played with it. Bufang calmly spouted nonsense. The crowd, Blackie immediately rolled its doggy eyes. How did this brat's skin become so thick after not seeing him for a few days? Everyone wait. Bufang leaned against the window. His robe slid down slightly, revealing his fair skin. He calmly said to the crowd below, I'm coming down to open the store. Everyone, wait for me. Then, Bufang retreated into his room and changed out of the thin robe he was wearing. His hair was still a little wet, but when he circulated his true energy, steam rose from his wet hair, and it immediately dried up. Using a velvet rope to tie up his hair, Bufang walked out of his room, went downstairs, and arrived at the store. Bufang opened the doors of the store, and a gust of cold wind immediately blew in. Everyone was staring at Bufang, staring at each other. Looking at the group of people at the entrance, there were about a dozen of them. Most of them were familiar people and old customers. Bufang's heart was slightly warmed, and he also felt a little apologetic. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. Please enter the store, Bufang said to the crowd as he took a step back. Ouyang Xiaoi was the first to angrily walk in. She even proudly frowned her nose. The corners of Bufang's mouth slightly twitched as he patted Ouyang Xiaoi's head. The latter was a little dissatisfied and wanted to hide, but she failed to do so. Everyone, please take a seat. If you don't have a place to sit, please squeeze. In order to express my apology, everyone can taste my new dish for free. Consider it as compensation. Bufang lightly nodded at the crowd and softly said. The crowd in the store was suddenly stunned. Everyone looked at Bufang in disbelief. Xiao Yinyu's eyes flickered with a strange light, and Xiao Xiaolong's vermilion red mouth was wide open. Oh my God, the black-hearted store's owner Boo is actually treating. For the owner Boo to treat, this was something that only happened once in 100 years. Owner Boo's black-hearted reputation in the imperial city was already unprecedented. A plate of egg-fried rice could be sold for a sky-high price of 10 crystals, and this black-hearted store owner was actually treating. After the initial shock, the crowd became incomparably excited. One after another, they excitedly looked toward Bufang. Bufang glanced at the crowd, then solemnly nodded his head. After patting Ouyang Xiaoi's head once again, Bufong turned around and walked toward the kitchen. System, this time, due to some objective reasons, will my crystals be deducted if I treat them? Bufong calmly asked. The objective reasons that the host mentioned are not due to a loophole in the system. Therefore, the host is treating them. All expenses will be deducted from the host's crystal income. The system quickly and seriously replied. The corners of Bufong's mouth twitched. Then, he calmly walked toward the kitchen. Since that's the case, then wouldn't it be better if I don't use the ingredients provided by the system? Bufong muttered. System. Chapter 182. Bufong could naturally guess that if he were to use the ingredients provided by the system to make a dish, the system would definitely deduct his crystals. Thus, Bufong cleverly chose to use the ingredients he had collected in the illusory spirit swamp. He had collected a lot of spirit herbs on this trip, but there weren't many high-grade ingredients. However, Bufong was pleasantly surprised on this trip, and that was the plump first-grade spirit fish from the serpentmen tribe. Even though the grade of the fish wasn't high, every single one of them was plump and plump. The flesh of the fish was bulging and extremely juicy. Bufong brought back quite a few of these fish. He didn't get to eat the fragrant grilled fish made in the serpentmen tribe, which made him feel that it was a pity. Even though he was a chef, he was also a foodie. Grilled fish had always been on his mind, so he brought back a few fish. In any case, these fish weren't worth much in the serpentmen tribe. In the serpentmen tribe, Bufong used such harsh conditions to cook such delicious grilled fish. Now that he was back in the store and faced with better equipment, the taste of the grilled fish would definitely be greatly improved. The crowd outside was looking forward to Bufong's new dish. After all, every new dish Bufong made would always surprise them. Standing in front of the cupboard and feeling the clean and comfortable kitchen, Bufong took in a deep breath and sighed. The conditions within the store were much better than those in the serpentmen tribe. With the better equipment and environment, Bufong became even more confident in the cooking of the grilled fish. He took out 2 plump fish from the system's dimensional storage. These fishes were really plump, and the more Bufong looked at them, the more he liked them, even though their grades weren't high. Green smoke curled around his hand, and the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in Bufong's hand. He used the spring water in the kitchen to wash the knife. Even though the dragon bone kitchen knife had a self-cleaning function, Bufong, who was a little obsessed with cleanliness, still subconsciously rinsed the knife. After washing the kitchen knife, Bufong began to process the fat fish. He was very familiar with handling fish, and it didn't take long for the 2 fish to be cleaned. Immediately after, he cut open the fish's abdomen, then cut the back of the fish, opened it up, and made a few fancy cuts on the fish's body. He took out a large porcelain basin and poured cooking wine and other ingredients into it. He placed the processed fish into it, sprinkled some pickling ingredients on it, and placed it into the system cupboard to marinate. With the help of the system cabinet, the pickling time would be greatly reduced. While waiting for the marinating process, Bufong began to prepare the other ingredients. He first took out the vegetables and fruits, twirled the knife, and finished processing them. Finally, he took out a blood-red blood crown. The blood crown of a 7th-grade black swan boa was extremely precious. It contained a rich amount of essence energy, and the surging essence energy was shocking. Bufong cut off a third of the blood crown. When the bright red blood crown was cut open, the essence energy gushed out like a dragon. This was the essence of a black swan boa, so it was naturally extraordinary. The blood crown felt like a fungus to the touch, so Bufong cut the third of the blood crown into strips and mixed them with the vegetables. After taking out the 2 marinated fish from the cupboard, Bufong specially asked the system to provide him with a baking tray to grill the fish. Even though the system was a scammer, it did not deduct Bufong's crystals from the baking tray that provided the new grilled fish dish. It seemed like the crystals would only be deducted when Bufong requested for the ingredients. He placed the 2 fishes on the baking tray, then placed them into the oven to steam. The scorching heat spread throughout the oven, and the flesh of the 2 fishes gradually became firmer. When it was just right, Bufong took out the baking tray. The fragrance of the fish was already spreading out from it. He then poured the stir-fried vegetables and fruits onto the grilled fish. Under the high temperature, the blood crown quietly melted, and its essence energy seeped into the fish and vegetables. A rich fragrance was emitted along with the essence energy, and Bu Fong could not help but feel hungry. The two fishes were very big, enough for the people outside to have a taste. Based on owner Bu's black-hearted ways, what new dish do you think he will treat us to? Lao Jin craned his neck and asked the people around him. Luo Sanyang rolled her eyes and grinned. Luo Sanyang rolled her eyes, then grinned and said, "That's hard to say. With owner Bu's character, he might take out a cornbread and tell you with a serious face that it's a new dish." "No, that's impossible. Since owner Bu said it's a new dish, then it's definitely worth looking forward to." Wan Er put the lunchbox she brought on the table, and when she heard Luo Sanyang's words, she immediately retorted in a soft and shy voice. Actually, everyone was a little curious about what kind of dish Bu Fong would make for them. This was actually a difficult question. After all, they came to the store to eat every day and were well aware of the quality and price of Bu Fong's dishes. If Bu Fong said he would treat them to a new dish that was not even worth crystals, then they would definitely think that Bu Fong was truly black-hearted. This was also the reason why Bu Fong chose to take out the blood crown. If he only relied on the fat fish from the Serpent Men tribe, the taste might be good, but because the spirit energy of the fish was not strong. If Bu Fong only grilled the fish, the customers would definitely feel somewhat uncomfortable. Just when everyone was whispering to each other, Bu Fong slowly walked out of the kitchen with the grilled fish in his hands. The grilled fish was very big. Instead of letting Ouyang Xiaoi carry it out, Bu Fong personally brought out a grilled fish and placed it on a table. A rich aroma wafted out from the grilled fish, causing everyone's eyes to instantly light up. "It's really a new dish. I've never seen this dish before, and it's even packed in special equipment." Fatty Jin's eyes widened. He did not expect Bu Fong to actually take out this new dish. She twitched the corner of her mouth. She didn't expect that Bu Fong would honestly offer her a new dish. She thought he would use cornbread as an excuse to get away with it. However, it was good to have a new dish. At least they could eat their fill. Holding their bowls and chopsticks, the crowd was already a little impatient. As they smelled the rich aroma of the grilled fish that spread out in the air, they were almost intoxicated by it and drooled. However, before they could even move their chopsticks, they were stopped by Bu Fong. "This dish is called grilled fish. Don't rush. You can't eat delicious grilled fish if you're impatient," Bu Fong said. Then, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Bu Fong removed the top half of the grilled fish, revealing the hollow part of the grill. Bu Fong extended a finger, and pale white, true energy instantly floated out of his finger, dancing on his finger like a spirit. His finger pointed toward the hollow part of the grill, Bu Fong. Instantly, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the grilled fish flashed one by one in the air, and the stars instantly moved and formed a simple magic array. A scorching heat rose from the magic array. Bu Fong placed the grilled fish on the grill, and the magic array rotated underneath, roasting the fish and the grilled fish. The magic array was dazzling, and it dyed the entire grilled fish colorful. It was too beautiful to behold. "This is the new dish that I've been researching for the past 2 days, Spirit Array grilled fish." Bu Fong spouted nonsense without batting an eyelid, finding a convincing excuse for his disappearance. Under the grilling of the magic array, the aroma of the grilled fish instantly became richer, and the radiance emitted by the magic array caused the color of the grilled fish to constantly change. Light red, dark red, light red again. The steaming hot air also became more obvious. The densely packed vegetables and fruits placed on top of the grilled fish made it look extremely beautiful. Just the sight of it alone was enough to intoxicate many people, let alone the rich aroma of the grilled fish after the magic array was activated. This is the first plate of grilled fish. Everyone, take your time. There's still another plate inside. I'll go get it, Bu Fong said. Go on, go on. At this moment, the crowd already had no idea what Bu Fong was talking about, so they casually called out to him. The corners of Bu Fong's mouth twitched. Looking at the faces of the crowd that was constantly swallowing their saliva, he turned around and walked toward the kitchen. All right, Owner Bu, when will this grilled fish be ready? Fatty Jean suddenly thought of an important question, then turned his head and asked. Guess. Bu Fong waved his hand and said calmly. His figure quickly entered the kitchen. Guess whether I'll guess or not. Fatty Jean really wanted to spit on Bu Fong's face. He turned his head indignantly, but his pupils shrank. F*CK, you bunch of beasts, leave some for me. Fatty Jean angrily looked at the group of people who were already quickly grabbing the grilled fish. Watching the fat, tender, and juicy fish being taken away, Fatty Jean felt as if all the fat on his body was being sucked away. This group of inhumane fellows. What happened to waiting for the fish to be cooked? What happened to the trust between people? Chapter 183. In the pitch-black night sky, two crescent moons resonated with each other, emitting a cold luster. It was as if the land was covered by a thin veil. Fong Fong's little store was brightly lit, and steam was rising from it. The steam was accompanied by a fragrance, and the fragrance was intertwined with spirit energy. The two complemented each other and complemented each other. As time passed, the clamor within the store gradually died down, and the steam also gradually dissipated. Bu Fong stood straight at the entrance of the store. Everyone was satisfied with their meal. The grilled fish that night was simply a feast for them. Everyone's face was flushed from the rich spirit energy within the grilled fish. The tender and juicy fish meat, the overflowing aroma, and the bubbling soup simply made them unable to stop. The satisfied crowd waved their hands toward Bu Fong and walked out of the alleyway, rubbing their bellies in satisfaction as they returned to their respective homes. Ouyang Xiaoi was no longer angry. After bidding farewell to Bu Fong, she left the store with Xiao Yinyu. A graceful figure and a lively figure gradually disappeared into the darkness. Are the egg tarts you prepared for me to taste in the food box? Remember, you only have 2 chances. Bu Fong looked toward the last 2 people. One was Luo Sanyang, who was burping with a flushed face, and the other was the adorable Wan Er, whose face was flushed red. Without a doubt, Bu Fong was asking about Wan Er. After hearing Bu Fong's words, Wan Er firmly shook her head and said, Forget about today's. Tomorrow, I will make another egg tart for Owner Bu to try. Today's is cold and will affect the taste. Bu Fong was slightly surprised, but he did not say anything and only nodded his head. Owner Bu, the taste of your grilled fish is really good. Even though you have a body full of flaws, your culinary skills are really good. I, Luo Sanyang, admire your culinary skills. Luo Sanyang stared at Bu Fong with a flushed face and then laughed loudly. Bu Fong was very calm. He was already familiar with this woman's wildness and madness, so he could already remain calm. The two of them quickly bid farewell to Bu Fong and left the alley. The noisy alleyway immediately regained its silence. Bu Fong let out a long sigh and glanced at Blackie, who was sleeping soundly by the door. The corners of his mouth slightly curled up, then he turned around and went back into the store, closing the door on his way back. So tired, he just wanted to sleep now. Little Black, it's time to eat. Early in the morning, after Bu Fong completed his daily cutting and carving practice, he carefully cooked a portion of sweet and sour ribs and carried it out of the store. The black puppy's nose twitched, then its eyes lit up as it stared at the sweet and sour ribs in Bu Fong's hand. The Lord Go had ribs to eat again. Bu Fong placed the sweet and sour ribs in front of the big black dog, stroked Black's smooth and spotless fur, then stood up and went back into the store. Bu Fong stopped in his tracks. His pupils slightly constricted as he looked at the earthy yellow flower pot in the corner. This is about to grow into a sapling? Bu Fong muttered in astonishment. Not long after the seed was planted in the earthy yellow flower pot, a branch had already grown out. There were a few tender green leaves on the branch, and it looked like it was about to grow into a sapling. Bu Fong suddenly became curious. He squatted in front of the flower pot and squinted his eyes to size up the few tender leaves that had grown out. Each of the tender leaves was engraved with complicated veins. The veins were twisted and looked dazzling. 4 veins? No, 5 veins. Bufong carefully counted the number of veins on the leaves. After counting a few times, he finally managed to count them. He stood up. Even though he did not know what this seed could produce, he could tell from the slight spiritual energy emitted by the sprout that this seed should be extraordinary. Even though there was not much spirit energy, it filled the store and enveloped the store in a peculiar atmosphere. It was an extremely mysterious state. As if he could feel the extraordinariness of this sapling, Bufong cheerfully ran to the kitchen and scooped up a bowl of spring water that was filled with spirit energy provided by the system. He poured half of the spring water into the earthy yellow flower pot and hesitated for a moment before pouring the remaining half into the pot. "Eat your fill. The store's greening will depend on you in the future," Bufong said to the sapling in a serious manner. Then, Bufong returned to the kitchen and arrived in front of the cupboard. He took out the light blue lotus seed pod from the system's storage space. Within the lotus seed pod were numerous jade-like lotus seeds that were filled with rich spirit energy. The monarch lotus seed was a 7th grade spirit herb. 3 of them were wasted by the serpent person elder, and there were only 5 left. However, it was enough for Bufong. When he opened the cupboard, a fiery aura burst out from within. Half a stalk of phoenix blood herb and a 3 stripes path understanding fruit were quietly placed inside. In addition to the 7th grade ice soul monarch lotus seed in Bufong's possession, Bufong actually managed to gather 3 types of 7th grade spirit herbs. It was simply unbelievable. It was already incredible for others to possess a single type of 7th grade spirit herb. For a chef from a small store in the imperial city like Bufong to possess 3 types of 7th grade spirit herbs, it was simply a fantasy story. The collection of spirit herbs is almost complete. I should be able to brew spirit wine. But there's no rush. I still need to plan the brewing process and how to brew it. Bufong placed the lotus seed pod into the cupboard. This cupboard had the function of preserving spirit energy. It was very practical. Outside the store, Fatty Jean arrived with his army of fatties. Fatty Jean had dark circles under his eyes, and his face was filled with excitement. That excitement simply could not be stopped. When Bufong walked out of the kitchen to take a look, he was immediately startled. "Oh, you Fatty? What's wrong?" Fatty Jean immediately looked at Bufong resentfully and said, "Owner Boo, after eating your grilled fish last night, I tossed and turned restlessly on the bed. My heart was on fire and I couldn't sleep at all. Didn't I toss and turn for the whole night?" Bufong pursed his lips and softly grunted. He was not too surprised. Yesterday's grilled fish contained 1/3 of the black swamp boa's blood crown. That thing was filled with spiritual essence. It would be a wonder if one could sleep well at night. Bufong could imagine that when Ouyang Xiaoi and the others came over later, they would definitely have dark circles under their eyes. "Owner Boo, give me a bowl of golden shumai. Today, I want to change the taste and eat something lighter," Fatty Jean said to Bufong as he sat down on a chair. Golden shumai was lighter? Don't lie to me when I don't cook much. Bufong glanced at Fatty Jean and was too lazy to say anything else. After taking down the orders of the other fatties, he turned around and entered the kitchen. At the entrance of the alleyway, a thin figure slowly walked over. It was a gray-robed elder. The skin on his face was full of wrinkles like the withered bark of an old tree. The old man walked slowly with one hand behind his back and the other holding a fan made from an unknown spirit beast feather. He gently waved it, even though it was somewhat puzzling to see him waving a fan on such a cold day. Perhaps it was the elder's unique hobby. The Fong Fong's little store in the alleyway of the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire? To be able to cook a dish that defeated Awei. I would like to see it for myself. The elder lightly smiled and once again waved his feather fan with an unfathomable expression on his face. "Grandpa, aren't you cold?" Ouyang Xiaoi, who was standing behind the elder, opened her mouth, and charmingly asked with her beautiful big eyes, puzzledly looking at the elder who was waving his fan at the entrance of the alleyway. The elder's body immediately stiffened, and the unfathomable expression on his face disappeared. He said, "Of course, I'm not cold. Little girl, don't you think that waving a fan in winter is very artistic?" Ouyang Xiaoi immediately rolled her eyes. She thought, this elder must be joking. It's winter, and I can't wait to wear more clothes. But we want to talk about artistic conception with you. Grandpa, are you coming to the store to eat? Follow me, Ouyang Xiaoi said as she led the way toward Fong Fong's little store. The gray-robed elder waved his fan, nodded, and followed behind Ouyang Xiaoi. When the elder arrived at the entrance of the store, he immediately saw a big black dog that was fiercely gobbling down a porcelain bowl. The big black dog's butt was raised, and its tail was constantly wagging as it happily ate. This is sweet and sour ribs, translucent orange-red, overflowing with a rich fragrance. Perfect. The elder's pupils constricted as he exclaimed. The elder did not even bother to wave his fan as he took a few steps toward Blackie. He looked at the steaming sweet and sour ribs in Blackie's bowl that was emitting a rich meaty aroma and gulped down a mouthful of saliva. This is the first time I've seen such a high-quality sweet and sour ribs. But it's a pity. Why is it being eaten by a dog? What a reckless waste of God's gifts. What a waste. Blackie, who was desperately gobbling down the sweet and sour ribs, suddenly stopped. Then it slowly raised its head and looked at the old man in front of it. Chapter 184. The old man craned his neck and stared at Blackie. Blackie rolled its eyes and glared at the old man. What did this old man just say? Was it a waste for a dog to eat the sweet and sour ribs? A waste? Blackie was immediately displeased. Why couldn't a dog eat the sweet and sour ribs? What did a dog do to an old man like you? Therefore, Blackie fiercely bared its teeth at the old man. There were still shreds of sweet and sour ribs between its teeth. Oh, this dog is so amusing. Why does it bare its teeth? Is it trying to bite me? The old man waved a fan in his hand made from an unknown spirit beast's feather and suddenly laughed. Sigh, what a pity for the sweet and sour ribs. The old man looked at the sweet and sour ribs in Blackie's bowl and sighed. He turned around and was about to leave. However, the moment he turned around, an enormous pressure suddenly landed on the old man's body. The old man, who had just taken a step forward, suddenly turned limp, and his entire body almost knelt on the ground. The old man's pupils constricted as he looked around in disbelief. This frightening pressure simply caused his soul to tremble. He was a 7th-grade battle saint who had been famous for a long time, yet he almost knelt in front of the store. If he really knelt, it would be a great disgrace. Blackie stuck out its tongue and licked its dainty dog paw. It snorted and then raised its paw and lightly waved it at the old man. The old man had no idea what was happening. At that moment, his back was facing Blackie, and he did not know where the pressure that seemed to be gathering from all directions came from. Bang! The old man's wrinkled face trembled. His entire body felt as if it was being crushed by a mountain. With a loud bang, he fell to the ground, as if deeply embedded into the ground. What the heck? What was going on? What exactly was going on? The old man raised his dust-covered head with a dumbfounded expression. He really did not know what had happened. He was inexplicably beaten to the ground by an invisible pressure. Did he have to be so unlucky? Did he offend someone? If you have the guts, come out and fight me. The old man wanted to cry, but had no tears. The sage-like temperament that he had painstakingly created was destroyed just like that. A hint of arrogance flashed across the black puppy's eyes, and it licked its paws again. How dare you speak ill of the Lord Go in front of the Lord Go? If I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know that the Lord Go's surname is Black. Then, Blackie continued to fiercely chew on the porcelain plate in front of him. Not long after, he finished all the sweet and sour ribs on the porcelain plate. The old man crawled up from the ground in a dusty manner. His face was as unsightly as if he was suffering from constipation. This store is poisonous. Could it be that there is a supreme expert keeping watch? But I didn't say anything bad about him just now. He only said that it was a waste to let a dog eat sweet and sour ribs, dog. Eh? Dog? The old man seemed to have thought of something. He turned his head suspiciously and glanced at the black dog that was wagging its tail and continuing to chew on the sweet and sour ribs. The more the old man looked, the more his pupils constricted. Previously, he did not carefully examine the black dog. Now, after careful observation and perception, he could feel an extremely terrifying aura slowly flowing around the big black dog's body. This dog was not an ordinary dog. After giving the big black dog a fearful glance, the old man turned around and stepped into the store. Once he entered the store, the rich aroma of the dishes wafted through the air and instantly entered the old man's mouth and nose, causing his entire body to tremble. Smells so good. This aroma. How many years has it been since I smelled it? The old man, with his dusty head, exclaimed with a face full of surprise. Ouyang Xiaoyi charmingly walked in front of the old man and asked, "Grandpa, take a look and see what you would like to eat." Fong Fong's little store has always operated with integrity. Our prices are reasonable and we never cheat anyone. You can take a look at the menu behind you and tell me what I would like to eat. The old man was slightly taken aback and turned his head to look at the menu. It would have been fine if he did not look at it, but once he did, the old man's expression once again became comical. As a ghost chef, even the dishes I cook do not dare to sell at such a high price. This store actually dares to set such a frightening price. And they even say the prices are reasonable and they never cheat anyone. The old man was dumbfounded and in disbelief. Anyone who saw the menu for the first time would be shocked by the frightening prices on the menu. You little doll, you're not being honest. You call the prices reasonable and they never cheat anyone? The old man said with dissatisfaction. The prices are very reasonable. Look, even at such a high price, aren't everyone eating happily? Ouyang Xiaoyi said. The old man was momentarily stunned. He looked toward Fatty Jean and the others who were gorging themselves, and his expression suddenly became a little strange. He had just taken a look at the price of sweet and sour ribs. A plate of sweet and sour ribs cost 50 crystals. A dog had just eaten a dish that cost 50 crystals. The old man felt as if stepping into the store was the beginning of a series where humans were inferior to dogs. Give me a plate of sweet and sour ribs. The old man thought about it and finally ordered a plate of sweet and sour ribs. The first dish he saw was sweet and sour ribs, and he had long been captivated by its aroma. Hence, he wanted to properly taste the taste of this sweet and sour ribs. So what if it cost 50 crystals? As a ghost chef, the old man was not sure of money. Take a seat first, Ouyang Xiaoyi said. Then she turned around and went to the kitchen window. She yelled at Bufong, "Give me a plate of sweet and sour ribs." Bufong nodded and continued to cook the dish in his hand. The old man sized up the interior of the store. The environment here was completely different from the restaurant he had built in Qinjiangzhen. The former had a winding path leading to a secluded place, giving off a mysterious atmosphere. As for the latter, the customers were all passionate adventurers, so the atmosphere here was completely different. The old man's gaze froze again because he seemed to have seen something extraordinary. Hurriedly taking a few steps, the old man came to the location of the earthy yellow flower pot. He squatted in front of it, his face solemn and dignified. Closing his eyes and taking in a deep breath, the tender leaves on the branch emitted a faint spirit energy. This spirit energy was not dense, and the old man could not help but be intoxicated by it. Could this be the 5 stripes path understanding tree? But didn't always say that the owner of the store had just received this reward? What's going on with this small branch of the 5 stripes path understanding tree? The old man was dumbfounded. He suddenly felt that he could not understand this world. A few days ago, owner Bu should have received the seed of the path understanding tree. But after growing it in this ugly flower pot for a few days, the seed broke out of its cocoon and developed into a branch. On it, there were tender leaves densely covered with 5 stripes spirit channels. He actually managed to grow this 5 stripes path understanding tree. This owner Boo, what kind of divine being is he? The old man's heart was already overwhelmed with shock. He suddenly felt an urgent need to meet Bufong. The survival of the 5 stripes path understanding tree is no small matter. Emperor Changfeng has obtained this spirit tree seed for so many years and has been cultivating it for so many years, yet it has not sprouted at all. Now that Bufong has only planted it in the store for a few days, the tender 5 stripes path understanding leaves have already sprouted. The old man took in a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. If the name of the 5 stripes path understanding tree were to spread, the store would once again be at the heart of the struggle. And this time, it would be even more dangerous. The 5 stripes path understanding fruit tree would bear fruit. This 5 stripes path understanding fruit was not something that an ordinary 3 stripes path understanding fruit could compare to. Once eaten, there was a high chance of gaining enlightenment. Especially when the 5 stripes path understanding tree was growing, it would constantly emit a mysterious aura. If one was enveloped in this mysterious aura, it would be easier for them to break through. Therefore, almost every cultivator was very clear on how precious the 5 stripes path understanding fruit was. To give a simple example, the 5 stripes path understanding fruit was a frightening spirit herb that had the ability to help a 7th grade battle saint touch the barrier to 8th grade war god. Just the fact that it could help a 7th grade battle saint touch the barrier to 8th grade was enough to drive many people crazy. At this moment, the old man looked at the path understanding fruit tree, and even his heart was filled with greed. He was also a 7th grade battle saint, and he too yearned to touch the barrier to 8th grade. How many 7th grade battle saints were there in the entire continent? How many battle saints were stuck between 7th grade and 8th grade? At this time, a 5 stripes path understanding fruit would give them a sense of hope in a desperate situation. This would naturally attract the covetous eyes of many experts. A small store in the imperial city actually planted a living 5 stripes path understanding tree. A man's wealth is his own ruin. I'm afraid this store will soon cease to exist, the old man murmured. Bufong finished cooking the sweet and sour ribs, wiped away the water stains on his hands, and slowly walked out of the kitchen. He just happened to see the old man in a gray robe squatting in front of the earthy yellow flower pot, staring blankly at the tender shoot. This caused him to be momentarily stunned. This old man, staring blankly at the store's future greenery, what was going on? Could it be that this old man knew the breed of this tender shoot? Bufong had always been curious about the breed of this small tree. If the old man knew, Bufong could ask. Chapter 185. Your sweet and sour ribs is ready. Please enjoy. Bufong's indifferent voice rang out, pulling the elder back from his thoughts. The latter glanced at Bufong, his eyes filled with contemplation. The elder stood up and glanced at the sprout with a hint of reluctance. His eyes were filled with struggle. A spirit tree, like the 5 stripes path understanding tree, was too attractive to a 7th grade battle saint. Not a single battle saint could resist the temptation of this spirit tree. After all, once this spirit tree bore fruit, it would bear the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. That path understanding fruit could help a 7th grade battle saint comprehend the opportunity to step into the 8th grade realm. Even many 8th grade war gods found it hard to resist the temptation of this path understanding fruit tree. Are you the owner, Boo, of this store? The elder looked at Bufong and asked. Bufong expressionlessly glanced at him and nodded. Do you know what kind of tree this is? The elder pointed at the sprout in the earthen yellow flower pot, his expression extremely solemn. The other party's solemn expression caused Bufong's heart to tremble. I don't know. Bufong shook his head. He really did not know what this sprout would grow. Since this elder knew, he might as well ask. You don't know? Then why did you participate in the 100 family banquet and compete for this seed? The corners of the elder's mouth twitched as he asked angrily. If not for Bufong's interference, his 2 disciples would have brought the seed back long ago. Could it be that this seed will grow something incredible? Bufong asked tentatively. Judging from the elder's expression, He definitely knew about this seed. The elder sighed and looked at Bu Fong with pity. Do you really think this seed is something good? Yes, to many people it's a good thing, but to some people, this seed is a terrifying talisman that hastens their deaths. Death warrant. How could it be so terrifying? Bu Fong's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that this seed will grow some terrifying poison? It can't be. These lines look quite righteous. Do you know that an ordinary man's wealth is his crime? If you have something you can't protect, no matter how precious it is, it can be called a death warrant, the old man said to Bu Fong seriously. Bu Fong blinked, his face expressionless. After such a long time, it turned out that what the old man meant was that the seed would be extremely precious. With Bu Fong's strength, it would be difficult for him to protect it. At that time, it would be a disaster for Bu Fong. However, this answer made Bu Fong heave a sigh of relief. If the germination of this seed turned out to be poisonous, then Bu Fong would have no choice but to abandon it. However, if it was said that Bu Fong did not have the ability to protect it, then Bu Fong would definitely scoff at it. The store's ability to protect itself was obvious to all. If even the store could not be protected, then an old man of 7th grade battle saint like you would be even less able to protect it. The old man did not say much. He just sat in front of the table and turned his attention to the delicacies. Looking at the plate of sweet and sour ribs, his appetite was immediately stimulated. The sweet and sour ribs cooked by Bu Fong was orange-red and clear, overflowing with a rich aroma. The rich meat aroma enveloped the air, making people salivate uncontrollably, itching to dig in. Using bamboo chopsticks to pick up a piece of sweet and sour ribs, he gently bit down. The orange-red juice instantly spread in his mouth, and the tender meat and aroma burst forth in an instant, completely intoxicating the old man. Delicious, a rare delicacy. The ghost chef was completely shocked this time. Even he did not expect that the young man in front of him could actually reach such a level of culinary skills. However, this was not what shocked him the most. After a piece of sweet and sour ribs entered his stomach, his eyes became even rounder than the first time, because this sweet and sour ribs was filled with terrifying spirit energy. How could a dish contain such rich spirit energy? Could it be that owner Bu had a unique method of retaining the spirit energy of ingredients? After eating a few pieces of sweet and sour ribs in succession, the deliciousness naturally went without saying. The terrifying amount of spirit energy hidden within each piece of ribs was even greater than the elixirs they ate. A bowl of sweet and sour ribs for 50 crystals, the old man suddenly felt that it was worth it. Bu Fong put away the 50 crystals handed over by the old man, and his gaze fell on the old man. He liked this kind of customer who did not beat around the bush. Owner Bu, let's discuss something. How about you give this sprout to me? You should know that with your cultivation level, there is absolutely no way you can protect it, the old man said. Bu Fong was momentarily speechless. Was it not safe here? This old man was really amusing. No, Bu Fong coldly refused. The old man was instantly enraged. This kid was merely a 5th grade battle king. Where did he get the confidence to refuse him? This old man isn't lying to you. Once this seed of yours matures, it will definitely attract many 7th grade battle saints. The old man explained to Bu Fong in a serious manner. Is a 7th grade battle saint that awesome? If they dare to cause trouble, then don't blame me for throwing them out one by one, Bu Fong calmly said. Wan Air had changed into a light purple floral dress today, which accentuated her slender figure. She held a lunchbox in her arms, which contained the egg tarts that Wan Air wanted Bu Fong to give her pointers. Egg tarts? The eyes of the ghost chef, who was still tangling with Bu Fong, suddenly lit up. He looked at the lunchbox in Wan Air's hands with interest and a sense of anticipation. Wan Air's appearance had also interrupted the conflict between him and Bu Fong, successfully diverting their attention away from each other. There were not many people in the store today. Fatty Jean and the others had already finished eating and left, leaving a large pile of empty seats. Wan Air planned to carefully take out the egg tarts from her lunchbox. The moment she opened the lunchbox, a rich, milky aroma wafted out. Even though it couldn't compare to the egg tarts made by Bu Fong, the aroma alone was already pretty good. "Boo, owner Boo, this is the egg tarts I personally made. Please have taste." After Wan Er put away the egg tarts, she took a step back and looked at Bu Fong respectfully. Bu Fong nodded, and his gaze fell on the egg tarts in front of him. The color of the egg tarts was not bad, much better than the one he had tasted for the first time. Picking up an egg tart, Bu Fong lightly took a bite. The milky aroma immediately burst forth, making him feel like he was immersed in a grassland where cows and sheep could be seen in the wind. Wan Er blinked and stared seriously at Bu Fong, hoping to hear words of praise from Bu Fong's mouth. If that was the case, Owner Bu would truly teach her how to make egg tarts. Bu Fong chewed and nodded as he chewed. Finally, he raised his eyes to look at Wan Er. "How does it taste?" Wan Er asked excitedly. Bu Fong did not immediately answer. Instead, he glanced at Wan Er, who had an excited expression on her face, and simply replied, "It did not reach the desired effect. Go back and practice a little more. Let me have a taste next time." From heaven to earth, he only needed an instant to possess the emotions of heaven and earth. After being mercilessly rejected by Bu Fong, the joy on Wan Er's face froze. In an instant, she became somewhat dejected. I'm sorry. I'll definitely work hard. I'll go back and think about it carefully. Next time, I'll definitely make an egg tart that will satisfy Owner Bu." Bu Fong admired Wan Er's temperament because this woman had a dedication to delicacies. Even though the egg tarts she made were not up to Bu Fong's standards, she still persisted in her research. Wan Er came quickly and left just as quickly. Stubbornly hugging her lunchbox, she left the store and went back to continue her research on the egg tarts. The other customers in the store also scattered and left, leaving only the strange old man behind. "Egg tarts? The one made by that girl just now should be pretty good. Why didn't it pass?" the ghost chef asked curiously. Bu Fong frowned, glanced at the old man, and simply said, "There's no need for a reason. If I feel that it did not meet my expectations, then it did not meet them." The old man was stunned for a moment and did not say anything. Bu Fong glanced at the dazed old man, then turned around and walked toward the kitchen. "You really don't plan on handing over the sprout of the spirit tree to me?" the old man asked as he looked at Bu Fong's back. Bu Fong ignored him and directly dashed into the kitchen to practice cooking. He was already too lazy to respond to the old man's words. The old man let out a long sigh and looked at the sprouting sprout regretfully. He said, "You brat, you'll definitely regret this in the future. Let's see what you'll do when you're surrounded by a group of terrifying battle saints." The old man held his hands behind his back and shook his head as he left the store. His figure gradually disappeared into the alleyway. Chapter 186. Heavy snowflakes fluttered in the sky like goose feathers. Under the howling of the cold wind, the snowflakes swirled in the air, then quietly drifted down, sprinkling over the bustling imperial city. The gate of heavenly mystery. After experiencing a war that changed the entire structure of the Light Wind Empire, this previously inconspicuous plaza became extremely important and was heavily guarded by countless soldiers. Originally, the Gate of Heavenly Mystery was one of the main routes to enter the main hall of the Imperial Palace. However, after the war, this main route was directly changed by Ji Qingshue's order. In the future, all those who entered the main hall could not pass through the Gate of Heavenly Mystery, but would instead enter from the Gate of Supreme Harmony on the west side of the Gate of Heavenly Mystery. Not because of anything else, but because the double Calamity Dragon Head array was actually hidden in the Gate of Heavenly Mystery. Back then, that array had suppressed all the experts of the sections. Such an important array was located in the Gate of Heavenly Mystery. As the Emperor, Ji Qingxue naturally had to protect it well. However, the Gate of Heavenly Mystery had a different meaning to the Imperial Palace. Ji Qingxue could not completely seal it off, and some large-scale events would still be held on the Gate of Heavenly Mystery. On the long streets of the imperial city, an upright elder walked slowly with his hands clasped behind his back. Heavy snowflakes fluttered down, whistling up and falling on his body, but were blocked by an invisible air current. How many years has it been since I returned to the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire? And Emperor Changfeng has actually fallen. The world is unpredictable, and the blue sea turns into mulberry fields. The ghost chef's wrinkled face was filled with nostalgia. He looked at everything around him and sighed softly. Emperor Changfeng was a wise ruler, and the Light Wind Empire developed rapidly under his leadership, causing many experts of the sects to cower under the majesty of the empire. It's a pity that the peace and tranquility of the empire will not last much longer. Once the Five Stripes Path Understanding tree bears fruit, the experts it will attract will not be something the sects can compare with. At that time, this imperial city will once again descend into chaos. The ghost chef sighed. He had just come out of Bu Fong's restaurant. He had to admit that Bu Fong's restaurant was amazing. The taste of the dishes was something that even he had to praise. Moreover, Bu Fong was able to make the Five Stripes Path Understanding trees seed mature and germinate. This was simply unbelievable. The ghost chef still remembered the scene of him being pressed to the ground by a strange force of pressure at the entrance of the store. Even though he was unintentionally pressed to the ground, he was clear in his heart that Fong Fong's little store was able to exist peacefully in a place like the imperial city where crooks mixed with honest folk. Furthermore, its dishes were still so expensive. Naturally, it had its reasons. It was impossible to rely solely on Bu Fong's cultivation level of 5th grade Battle King. In the ghost chef's opinion, perhaps the trump card of Fong Fong's little store was a 7th grade Battle Saint, or an existence of a higher level. To be able to take him by surprise, Bu Fong's trump card might be that of an outstanding 7th grade Battle Saint. But so what? Once the news of the Five Stripes Path Understanding tree got out, it would not just be 1 or 2 7th grade Battle Saints that would gather. The Tianxian Gate was right in front of him. The ghost chef continued to move forward with his hands behind his back. Who goes there? The number of guards guarding the gate of heavenly mystery had already increased by a lot. Upon seeing the ghost chef's figure, they immediately shouted. The wrinkles on the ghost chef's face suddenly twitched, revealing a hint of a smile. He took a step forward, and his whole person instantly swept past like a phantom, disappearing before the eyes of the guards. As he stepped on the thick layer of snow on the gate of Heavenly Mysteries Plaza, the ghost chef raised his eyes and gazed into the distance, taking a deep breath. Double Calamity Dragon Head Array. Is it here? The ghost chef looked at the stone pillars on the plaza, his gaze focused. Suddenly, the sound of something piercing through the air came from behind him. A tall and sturdy figure stood proudly in the blue dome of heaven. Xiao Ming slowly landed on the gate of Heavenly Mysteries Plaza. Looking at the tall and sturdy elder in front of him, he slightly cupped his hands and said, "Senior, long time no see." The ghost chef turned his head and his gaze fell on Xiao Ming. He smiled faintly and said, "The kid from back then has now also stepped into the realm of 7th grade Battle Saint. Your talent is indeed extraordinary. Thank you for your compliment, Senior. His Majesty invites you to enter the main hall for a chat." Xiao Ming faced the ghost chef, still as respectful as ever. "Very well. This old man also wants to see how the new emperor who has inherited the Eternal Wind's throne is like," the ghost chef said lightly. Wildlands, Central Area. A melodious spirit beast howled. Almost all the spirit beasts in the wildlands stopped moving, then stretched out their heads, as if listening to the howl of this spirit beast. Rumble. The low bushes were suddenly crushed by a huge figure, trampling them to pieces. The ground trembled, and the surface of the small puddles trembled. Rumble. The figure of a huge spirit beast emerged. This was a male lion with fiery red fur. 2 sharp fangs protruded like 2 sharp longswords. This was a 7th grade spirit beast, the fire lion. It was an extremely violent spirit beast, and its battle prowess was formidable. On the back of this fire lion, there was actually a figure sitting cross-legged, That figure was tall and proud, with delicate features. He wore a fiery red robe, and between his brows was a smear of vermilion. This was a handsome man who was not lacking in wildness. He lightly patted the fire lion's head and chuckled. Finally, we have a chance to leave the wildlands. Lil Fire, are you happy? Roar. The fire lion raised its head and howled, as if in response to this man. Ha, don't be anxious. I brought Lil Water and Lil Thunder along. When the time comes, I'll let you guys come out for a breather. But now you have to hurry. Our destination is the Light Wind Empire. The man in red said gently as he stroked the fire lion's fur. The 7th grade fire lion was naturally very intelligent. It turned its head and dashed away at lightning speed. The man in red sat on the lion's back and suddenly let out a carefree laugh. Not long after the man disappeared, a team of 3 similarly mounted spirit beasts appeared. There were both men and women in this team, but there was no doubt that the aura on their bodies was extremely terrifying. The young temple master ran too fast. A woman in red said, with a bitter smile, as she looked at the figure that had long disappeared. The young temple master's fire lion specializes in speed. It's normal that we couldn't catch up, but there's no need to worry. With the young temple master's cultivation and the existence of the fire lion, the possibility of danger is very small. Another man in red said, Our 3 temples of the god of barbarians have all sent people to the Light Wind Empire. What exactly happened? Why did they mobilize such a large force? It said that the high priestess predicted that an opportunity would appear in the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire. She even ordered the young temple masters of the 3 temples to head there to search for it. I'm also very puzzled. What kind of opportunity could there be in a mere Light Wind Empire, and in the imperial city at that, for the high priestess to send 3 young temple masters at the same time? Master, are we going to look for Onurbu directly? Tang Yin was carrying a sword and riding a unicorn. He looked at the majestic Light Wind Empire Imperial Palace and turned his head to speak to Nai Yin, who was wrapped in a loose robe. Nai Yin was holding a huge spirit fruit in her hand. As she ate, juice splattered everywhere. Her beautiful face swelled up and her cheeks puffed up. She mumbled a few words and directly pointed at the imperial city. She took the lead in patting her horse's butt and headed toward the imperial city. Tang Yin helplessly looked at his gluttonous master and urged his unicorn to follow after her. Tang Yin did not know the purpose of coming to the imperial city this time. However, Nai Yin said that there was an opportunity for him, so he followed along. However, coming to the imperial city was also good. He could taste Onurbu's cooking again. After sending off the last customer, Ouyang Xiaoi stretched her tired body. After bidding farewell to Bufang, she returned to her Ouyang manor. Bufang glanced at the fluttering snow in the sky. He lightly exhaled and closed the door. After closing the store, Bufang went to the kitchen. He opened the cupboard and rubbed his chin. He looked at the 3 7th-grade spirit herbs that were overflowing with spirit energy and began to ponder. It was time to start brewing a better wine than Dragon's Breath. Chapter 187. In the dark night, the wind and snow continued to fall. 2 crescent moons were faintly discernible between the clouds. Light Wind Empire Imperial City, Main Hall. Inside the main hall, the lights were brightly lit and the sounds of singing and dancing rang out incessantly. The aroma of fine wine and delicacies permeated the air, lingering in the air above the main hall. In the middle of the main hall, dancers swayed their waists, trying their best to show off their beauty. Court musicians sat in a corner, playing to their heart's content, playing melodious notes. The dancers danced to the accompaniment of the music. It was too beautiful to take one's eyes off. Ji Qingxue, who was dressed in luxurious robes, sat on the dragon throne at the front of the hall. The important ministers of the imperial court were seated on both sides of him. Many of these ministers were new faces. It was obvious that they had been promoted by Ji Qingxue during the Great Purge. Some of the empire's great families also took their seats. Whether it was the Shao family, the Ouyang family, or the Yang family, they were all seated below the main hall. As they toasted with each other, the sound of laughter rang out incessantly. The ghost chef sat not far from Ji Qingxue, the wrinkles on his face slightly moving up and down, showing the joy in his heart at the moment. Master Wang, I once heard the previous emperor's praise for you when he was still alive, saying that you were an extraordinary person of the empire, wandering the continent for decades, seeing countless extraordinary sights and countless people and events. It is said that you are honing your culinary skills, which really makes me admire you. Ji Qingxue filled a white jade cup with bejeweled nectar wine and said to the ghost chef Wang Ding. As soon as he finished speaking, he drank the wine in the cup in one gulp. Wang Ding also raised his jade cup, motioned to Ji Qingxue, drank it in one gulp, smacked his lips, and praised the wine. Your Majesty is too kind. This old man is only a wanderer of the continent. I don't deserve such praise from your Majesty. Wang Ding chuckled. Ji Qingxue really admired the old man in front of him. Of course, a large part of it was because of the other party's culinary skills and strength. But the ghost chef Wang Ding, wandering the continent, it was true. Master Wang is too humble. The Hidden Dragon continent is vast and boundless. We know that the Light Wind Empire is but a tiny piece of land in the continent. My heart yearns for that vast world. So my admiration for Master Wang comes from the bottom of my heart. If Master Wang has the time, why don't you introduce some places in the Hidden Dragon continent to me, so that I can satisfy my curiosity? Ji Qingxue raised his cup to the ghost chef Wang Ding again. The ghost chef did not shirk. He was born in the Light Wind Empire and rose to prominence in the empire. The name of the ghost chef spread throughout the world, and he spent the next few decades traveling the continent. A few years ago, he lived in seclusion in Xinjiang town outside the wildlands and opened a small restaurant. Everyone in the great hall looked curiously at the ghost chef, listening attentively. Humans always had an inexplicable yearning for the unknown. Even if these people were the nobles of the empire, it was the same. Even someone as powerful as Xiao Meng held his breath out of curiosity. This old man has traveled the continent for dozens of years. To be honest, I am ashamed to say that I have not traveled the entire continent. The continent is boundless, and this old man feels that even if I spent a lifetime, I might not be able to reach the end. But this old man is not completely empty-handed. Your Majesty should know of the wildlands. It is vast and boundless with countless beasts. The wildlands is known as a forbidden zone for humans, but on the continent, there are many such places. The ghost chef Wang Ding took a sip of ice heart jade urn wine, exhaled deeply, and said slowly, "There is a vast and boundless swamp in the north called the illusory spirit swamp. The dangers there are no less than the wildlands. The spirit swamp is vast, but the species of spirit beasts are also very rich. There are countless spirit herbs, and even 7th grade spirit herbs exist. This old man has traveled in the illusory spirit swamp for many years and has seen many strange races, such as the Naga tribe, the Scorpion tribe, and so on." Everyone in the main hall suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. The Naga tribe, this sounded like a very powerful tribe. There's a big city in the spirit swamp built by the Naga tribe. It is very majestic, and the Naga tribe has many strong warriors, far more than our Light Wind Empire can compare. In the illusory spirit swamp, the Naga city is not the strongest. There's also a mountain villa built in the clouds, called the White Cloud Villa. This old man has only heard of the name of this villa, but has not seen it with my own eyes. Ji Qingxue's eyes lit up, and his blood surged in his heart. He sucked in a breath of cold air. White Cloud Villa, Naga City, the continent is vast, and there are indeed many strange things. In the east, there's a stretch of continuous mountains, known as the 100,000 Mountains. There are endless mountain ranges and peaks in it. That is the most terrifying area. I have spent 10 years and only managed to walk through a few mountain ranges. The forces in a mountain range are complicated. There are spirit beasts, humans, and unknown races. They all compete for the resources in the 100,000 mountains to develop themselves. In the south, there's an endless ocean as far as the eye can see, and there is no end, the ghost chef Wang Ding said a lot. Perhaps it was because he had not talked about some of his deeds for a long time, but tonight his words were especially eloquent. He described some of the dangerous places he had gone through, giving everyone in the main hall an experience they had never experienced before. So the continent was really this vast and incredible. Master Wang is really a godly person. These are all areas that we cannot imagine. The illusory spirit swamp in the north, the 100,000 mountains in the east, the endless ocean in the south. Phew, this emperor is overwhelmed with emotion listening to you. Ji Qingxue raised his wine cup again and toasted the ghost chef Wang Ding. Wang Ding also raised his cup and drained it. Suddenly, a wave of fragrance wafted over. A number of graceful palace maids carrying porcelain plates came leisurely, and the rich aroma was bursting out from those porcelain plates. Seeing this scene, Ji Qingxue suddenly burst into laughter. Haha, they're finally here. Master Wang, have a taste. This is the oyster pancake that this emperor specially sent someone to Onarbu to buy. Master Wang is well-versed in culinary arts. You should like it. The ghost chef Wang Ding was taken aback, and his gaze fell on the porcelain plate placed in front of him by the palace maid. There was only a hemispherical, round, golden fried bun on the plate. Ji Qingxue licked his lips, picked up a piece of oyster pancake, and took a bite. Instantly, a rich aroma wafted out. The plump oyster entered his mouth, and he was completely intoxicated. Because of his busy schedule, he could only eat this oyster pancake to satisfy his cravings. So fragrant, so unbelievably fragrant. The ghost chef took a deep breath. The rich aroma instantly provoked his taste buds, and he could not help but salivate. He also picked up the oyster pancake, took a bite, and a crisp crunch rang out. The skin of the oyster pancake instantly cracked, and the aroma burst out like a bomb, completely enveloping him and making him intoxicated. He couldn't stop chewing, and his mouth couldn't stop chewing. The aroma of the meat, oyster, and shredded radish blended together, giving him a taste that he had never experienced before. Delicious. This is simply too delicious. Wang Ding regained his senses, swallowed a mouthful, and was immediately full of praise. Ha! As long as Master Wang likes it. Because this emperor is hosting a banquet today, I specially sent many people to Onarbu to buy this oyster pancake. Each person is limited to one, and each portion only has two. With so many oyster pancakes today, perhaps Onarbu will be exhausted. Ji Qingxue laughed heartily. Onarbu? You mean the owner of Fong Fong's little store in the alleyway? Wang Ding was taken aback. He looked toward Ji Qingxue and asked in puzzlement. That's right. Could it be that Master Wang knows Onarbu? Ji Qingxue was surprised. The ghost chef Wang Ding shook his head with a strange expression. After taking a bite of the oyster pancake, he said, Before I entered the palace, I just left the store. Oh, this time, Ji Qingxue was greatly interested. The ghost chef Wang Ding was known as the man with the best culinary skills in the empire. He wondered what kind of evaluation he would have after tasting Onarbu's cooking. Onarbu's culinary skills are impeccable, especially the rich true energy contained in each dish. This is extremely incredible, and not something an ordinary person can achieve. The ghost chef said, but just as he finished speaking, he frowned. But, Your Majesty, there is something this old man does not know, if I should say. Speak your mind. Ji Qingxue became serious. The origins of this store are unclear, and the identity of Onarbu is unknown. Its existence in the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire, the capital of a nation, could bring unimaginable disaster to the imperial city. The ghost chef Wang Ding's face froze as he said seriously. At this, Ji Qingxue, Xiao Ming, and Elder Ouyang were all stunned. Onarbu could bring disaster to the imperial city? You must be joking. Chapter 188. Master Wang, why you say so? Owner Bu has helped the imperial city resolve many crises. Ji Qingxue asked with a frown. That's right, he did not know Bu Fang's identity, nor the origins of the store. However, this did not hinder his trust in the store, because without Bu Fang, the entire Light Wind Empire would have been completely destroyed by the sects in the last war. Even though he respected Master Wang, as the emperor of a nation, Ji Qingxue had his own judgment. He did not believe that Bu Fang would bring disaster to the imperial city. Xiao Meng and the others also thought so, because they had interacted with Bu Fang many times. Even though they could not understand Bu Fang, they could tell that Bu Fang did not seem like the kind of person who would bring disaster to the imperial city. Wang Ding was a little surprised. Ji Qingxue seemed to have a lot of trust in this owner Bu. However, he was not too surprised. He just smiled and said, Your Majesty, do you still remember the 100 family banquet? Of course I do. It was the first 100 family banquet after I ascended to the throne. It was very grand, and Owner Bu was the champion of the 100 family banquet, Ji Qingxue said. The ghost chef smiled, but it gave off the impression of a fake smile. This old man's 2 good-for-nothing disciples are also participating. Their goal is to get first place in the 100 family banquet and win His Majesty's prize. This was awkward. Ji Qingxue's face was a little stiff. Your Majesty's prize was a seed, right? Your Majesty may not know what kind of seed it is, but I do, the ghost chef said. Ji Qingxue was taken aback. That seed is the seed of the 5 stripes path understanding tree. After maturing, the 5 stripes path understanding tree can bear the 5 stripes path understanding fruit. Your Majesty should know the effects of the 3 stripes path understanding fruit. What about the 5 stripes path understanding fruit? As soon as these words came out, the whole audience immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The 3 stripes path understanding fruit was a 7th grade spirit herb. Then what about the 5 stripes path understanding fruit? This was simply hair-raising. Once a 7th grade battle saint consumes the 5 stripes path understanding fruit, there is a high probability that this battle saint will be able to gain enlightenment and break through to 8th grade war god. The ghost chef was also a little shocked in his heart. He took a deep breath and said excitedly. Ji Qingxue was stunned. 8th grade war god. What kind of existence was that? But the seed could not be grown at all. Ji Qingxue came back to his senses and looked at the ghost chef. He knew that the seed was precious, but it seemed impossible to grow it. The empire had used countless methods, but had not been able to grow it. Down below, Xiaoming also took a deep breath. The realm of 8th grade war god was a realm that he yearned for endlessly. Unfortunately, he was still quite a distance away from reaching that realm. The ghost chef took a sip of the bejeweled nectar wine and calmed his excited state of mind. Then, he slowly raised his head and looked at the people around him as he indifferently said, Owner Bu, he planted this seed alive. In Fang Fang's little store, the lights were slightly lit. Bu Fang looked at the 3 sets of 7th grade spirit herbs in front of him and felt the rich spirit energy emanating from them. His eyes narrowed. Then, his mind began to ponder on how to use these spirit herbs to brew wine. This time, he definitely could not use the 9 distillation method, because the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine was strictly speaking a rice wine, and the ingredients this time were spirit herbs and spirit fruits. The brewing method naturally needed to be different. This was also what gave Bu Fang a headache. Fortunately, Bu Fang also had experience brewing fruit wine in his previous life, so Bu Fang was not too worried. He was only worried about how to brew this spirit wine well. System, is there any recommended method for brewing spirit wine? Bu Fang thought for a while and finally asked the system. He felt that it was safer this way. The system did not quickly reply to him. Instead, it was silent for a long time before it solemnly said, Brewing spirit wine is a temporary mission belonging to the host. The mission requires the host to create a wine that can surpass Dragon's Breath. The system will not provide a specific method. As expected, the corners of Bu Fang's mouth twitched. He knew that, with the system's nature, it would definitely not give him a chance to take advantage of any loopholes. Frowning, Since the system did not provide a method, Buffon could only think of a way himself. The most difficult part of brewing fruit wine was the length of fermentation. He had to control the timing himself. If he opened the jar too early, the essence within the jar would be lost, and the quality of the spirit wine would naturally decline. Buffon rubbed his chin and pondered for a long time. Immediately after, Buffon stopped thinking about it and took out a large pile of low-grade spirit fruits from the system's dimensional storage. The grade of these spirit fruits was around the second or third grade, not very high. This was a type of purple spirit fruit, full and translucent. Buffon had eaten one before, and it was sweet and sour. It would be good to use it to brew this fruit wine. Green smoke curled around his hand, and a pitch-black, unadorned kitchen knife appeared in his hand. His palms suddenly slammed down, and suddenly the table shook. The spirit fruits on the table were thrown into the air one after another. Buffon twirled the knife and displayed the meteor cutting technique. He waved the kitchen knife and cut these spirit fruits. Poochie, poochie. Below the spirit fruits, there was a huge wine jar. Every spirit fruit that was cut into pieces by Buffon fell into the huge wine jar. There was a large number of these spirit fruits. After being chopped up by Buffon, they filled about half of the jar. Retrieving an extremely small wine jar, Buffon washed it clean and took out the 3 stripes path understanding fruit. This spirit fruit was a 7th grade spirit fruit. There were 3 cloud patterns on it, and it was incomparably ethereal. The kitchen knife in Buffon's hand twirled, and with a flick of the knife, he cut down without the slightest hesitation. This 7th grade, 3 stripes path understanding fruit was chopped into pieces. Due to the special properties of the dragon bone kitchen knife, the 3 stripes path understanding fruit's spirit energy basically did not dissipate. After storing the crushed fruit into the small wine jar, Buffon placed the small wine jar into the huge wine jar filled with spirit fruit fragments. Using the same method, he chopped up the remaining half of the phoenix blood herb, packed it, and placed it into the huge wine jar. The same went for the ice soul monarch lotus. When the 3 were placed into the huge wine jar, there seemed to be an invisible energy intertwining with each other. The wine jar containing the phoenix blood herb emitted a faint fiery red, while the wine jar containing the ice soul monarch lotus emitted a faint blue glow. The wine jar containing the 3 stripes path understanding fruit was a little more peculiar. There were actually 3 faintly discernible clouds floating on the outside. Jar within jar, wine within wine, all 4 were fermenting at the same time. After covering the huge wine jar's lid, Buffon's eyes focused. Then, he placed both of his hands on the huge wine jar. The true energy vortex within his dantian naturally rotated, and the true energy actually surged out and flowed into the jar. Poochie poochie. The spirit fruit fragments within the huge wine jar were originally chopped up by Buffon. Under the pressure of the true energy, juices began to seep out, and the juices quickly soaked through the flesh of the fruit. Buffon's true energy slowly stirred within the wine jar, causing it to continuously rotate. His true energy also gradually permeated into the wine liquid. After stirring for half the night, the true energy within Buffon's body was almost completely exhausted. When Buffon released his hand from the huge wine jar, he staggered a few steps back. When he raised his palm, he discovered that it was actually slightly twitching. The output of true energy this time was extremely taxing on him. Both his energy and physical strength had reached their limits. Using true energy to aid in fermentation, the effect should be pretty good, Buffon muttered. Then, he carried the incomparably heavy wine jar and walked toward the cupboard. This cupboard was a cupboard specially used for brewing wine. Buffon took out the 3 jars of ice-hard jade urn wine that were placed inside and placed the huge wine jar within. Inside this cupboard, the passage of time would be accelerated. Perhaps after a few days, the fermentation would be completed. However, Buffon was still a little dissatisfied. He furrowed his brows. He felt that this method was a little too simple. One must know that Ni Yin once mentioned that the brewing method of the dragon's breath was extremely complicated. The fermentation process seemed to be buried under the heavenly mountain spirit pool, and it took 3 years before it became wine. System, can this cupboard simulate a special environment? Bufang asked the system once again. He felt that just using an ordinary fermentation method would not be able to compete with the dragon's breath. This was because the effects of different fermentation environments on the wine were as different as heaven and earth. The time-elapsing cupboard can simulate a special environment. Every time it consumes 10 crystals, it will be deducted from the host's sales. The system answered very quickly this time. Bufang rolled his eyes. He knew that with the system's nature, the fact that it answered so quickly meant that it was going to deduct money again. Isn't it just 10 crystals? I can afford to deduct it. After Bufang paid the 10 crystals, his mind instantly formed a connection with the cupboard in front of him. After placing the huge wine jar inside, different scenes appeared in front of Bufang's eyes. There was a world of ice and snow, a volcanic eruption, the heavenly mountain spirit pool, and even a boundless ocean. Which environment should I place it in? Bufang pondered for a moment, and finally set the environment to the bottom of the ocean. The combination of ice and fire, in addition to the impact of the vast ocean. Even Bufang himself was suddenly looking forward to this spirit wine. As for the time in the cupboard, Bufang calculated carefully. According to the true energy that he had just filled in, it would take about 3 years to ferment. Therefore, in the time-elapsing cupboard, Bufang adjusted the time to 3 years, which would probably take about a month. After doing all this, Bufang felt a little exhausted. Feeling the dried-up true energy in his body, his brows furrowed again. He realized that it was urgent to make a snack that could recover true energy. After leaving the kitchen and climbing into the room, Bufang took a shower. The warm air made his vision a little blurry. Even though his body was extremely tired, Bufang was still very much looking forward to it. Even Bufang himself could not imagine how great the charm of a spirit wine brewed with 3 types of 7th-grade herbs would be. At the very least, he could confirm that the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine was absolutely incomparable to this spirit wine. Suddenly, Bufang was slightly startled. His whole body relaxed as he lay on the bed and narrowed his eyes. There was still an extremely important question. This spirit wine, what should it be called? You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.